This story is about a guy named Chung Yan, an underpaid engineer who died from the stress of his workload and finds himself reincarnated into the body of a prince. In this new world, witches exist with supernatural powers, and Chung Yan plans to use his engineering skills and the witches' powers to advance in this primitive society. His new life begins abruptly when he hears someone calling him to wake up. As he opens his eyes, he discovers himself seated on a chair, bewildered by his unfamiliar surroundings. He looks around and sees these oddly dressed ladies. When he looks in front, he sees an entire town gathered around what looks like an execution platform. Naturally, the poor guy's mind is blown by this bizarre scene. I mean, just a while ago, he was probably crunching numbers or drafting some blueprints, not dodging beheadings. Suddenly, a bald guy addresses him as Prince, and reminds him that the time for the execution has arrived and he has to announce his ruling soon. The boy remains clueless for a moment about what's happening, but when he focuses, memories of the body's previous owner flood his mind instantly. Apparently, he's the fourth prince of Grey Castle, known as Roland Wimbledon. He recalls his father assigning all his siblings to various territories under his control, with the promise that in 5 years, the one who governs best will inherit the kingship. But the boy faces a big problem. He's just an ordinary guy, while his siblings are a formidable bunch, giving them an edge in this competition. The first prince has exceptional martial skills. The second excels in finance. The third princess commands a strong following, and the fifth princess is highly intelligent. Meanwhile, Roland, as the fourth prince, seems to be only a waste of oxygen thus far, with no notable talents. To make matters worse, he's been assigned to a desolate border town, God-forsaken city, where streets are filled with filth and neglect. Here, he must interact with the locals and somehow turn this dismal place into a thriving territory. While feeling sorry for his situation, the old man reminds him once again to make his announcement quickly. That's when the boy realizes he has a witch to execute today. The crowd is restless, eager to witness the demise of this alleged witch, whom they believe to be a spawn of the devil and wholly deserving of death. The boy is shocked by the bullcrap spewed by these ragtag individuals and deeply disappointed by their uncivilized behavior, which infuriates him. In frustration, he flings the paper from the old man's hands away and with an annoyed expression, orders everyone to release the witch immediately. The crowd goes quiet, clearly unhappy with the prince's sudden decision. After seeing the public reaction, he lets out a tired sigh, saying he's beat and suggests they move the trial to another day. The old man tries to talk him around. Chief Knight Carter Lannis steps forward, urging him to think it over. He insists they must execute the witch right away to prevent other witches from trying to save her. The prince can't help but chuckle at the sight of this tough knight, built like a bull, looking so scared of witches. Our hero then starts to head down, casually pointing out that if more witches showed up, they could squash them all in one go. The knight has no clue how to handle this, and the scene shifts to the fourth prince's residence in Bordertown South Castle. Outside, the grumpy knight stands while our hero slams the door in his face. The prince lets out a sigh at first, but then suddenly freaks out because he hasn't dealt with this many people in his entire life. Even after his meaningless death, he's not complaining, because he is grateful for this second shot in life, and he's dead set on fully stepping into Prince Roland's shoes and getting to the bottom of things with the witch. The scene then shifts to the dungeon in the border town, where he's about to meet this witch despite all the warnings from his knights about the potential dangers ahead. The boy just laughs it off, poking fun at his chief knight for being scared like a coward of a little girl. But the knight nervously insists that witches are minions of the devil. Unfazed, our hero keeps on walking until he finally comes face to face with the supposed witch. The witch stands up and steps forward, and our hero starts to blush a bit at the sight of her beauty. But his noisy knight immediately butts in, telling the prince to back off from the witch. Our hero just casually puts a reassuring hand on the knight's shoulder and steps forward again, asking the girl her name. Once again, the annoying loudmouth interrupts before they can even exchange pleasantries. Finally fed up with the knight's constant yammering, our hero gives the shiny armored guy a gentle bonk on the head out of frustration and tells him to stay the heck away while he's talking. Turning back to the girl, our hero asks if she's cool with sharing her name. She decides to spill the beans. Turns out her old man was working in the mines when a cave-in trapped him. Some greedy miner tried to loot his stuff in the chaos. She rallied the neighbors to help free her dad, but her uncle had to throw down with that Baldy McShine. Just as he was about to finish her uncle off, she intervened. She extended her hand and unintentionally did something she never wanted to do. The man burned to crisp, leaving nothing but ashes. This was the day her neighbors labeled her the evil witch, even though she begged them not to spill her secret about witchcraft. And the worst part of this sob story is that her own dad ratted her out. Then this same old consultant guy shows up and suggests our hero just roast the lady before she pulls anything sketchy. But my guy tells him to chill because he's curious to see this witchcraft in action. The lady's baffled that someone actually wants her to unleash her powers, but our hero's all cool about it, pushing her to just go for it. She reminds him that her powers are blocked by this locket around her neck, and asks if he's really up for her taking it off, warning him she might cause chaos. But then he grabs the locket chain, breaks it, and tosses the locket away like it's nothing. "Show us your damn powers already," he tells her. And so, the fire starts to crackle around her, and this macabre dance of flames just leaves our hero's eyes wide open, and the entire prison cell lights up with the light. The prince freaks out while the woman casually strolls out after melting the prison bars. The knight bolts in the opposite direction, but our guy is just blown away by her fiery powers. Finally, he gets why his consultant said fire can't touch her, because she's basically fire herself. Once the flames die down, the former engineer in him sparks with a genius idea. He's not about to waste such epic magic without using it to revolutionize things. When she asks him to end her life because she's shown him what he wanted to see, he surprises her. He throws his coat over her burnt clothes and tells her she's hired. Prince Ronald, drawing on his past life knowledge, declares that she's essentially a perpetual motion machine, able to generate firepower seemingly out of nothing. However, not everyone shares the prince's visionary thinking. The consultant is utterly annoyed by Ronald's decision. He shouts, reminding him of the witch's ability to obliterate anyone with a mere gesture. Moreover, he warns that hiring her could attract the attention of the Witch Cooperation Association, potentially leading to their destruction. But Ronald dismisses the old man's concerns, instructing him to prepare a work contract. He then starts walking away, casually mentioning that he intends to establish a working relationship with the witch, Anna, and further orders the consultant to arrange accommodation for her as well. Back at the administrative office in Bordertown Castle, the old man reports he's taken care of everything as instructed, but he's not sure about sparing the witch's life. The prince cuts him off, saying not to question his decisions. To him, witches aren't some monsters, but the old man's still not convinced. That is when our hero lays it out straight, reminding him that Bordertown is a total mess, and he doesn't have his brother's riches or his siblings' smarts. So winning here is a long shot, and he's got to try something out of the box to claim the victory. The old man's impressed by the prince's determination and agrees to arrange a meeting with Miss Anna. Meanwhile, Miss Anna is getting a thorough wash and cleanup, and once she's looking all cute and tidy in some nice clothes, she's escorted to meet our hero. The knight shows our hero the cottage where Anna will be staying. The prince is pretty impressed with the cottage, especially since it was prepared on such short notice. Just then, the knight announces Anna's arrival. When our hero turns around, he sees her in a maid's attire, looking absolutely stunning. He's pleasantly surprised and amazed at how well the clothes turned out. He asks her if she's comfortable in her new outfit. But instead of being happy, she starts a tirade, questioning why he's giving shelter to a murderer like her, someone tainted with evil and loathed by everyone. The prince surprises her by stating that he doesn't see things that way. He dismisses all the talk about evil witches and devils' powers as nonsense. He explains that people are just scared because they don't understand her significance to society. He extends his hand, telling her he accepts her despite her flaws. He promises to teach her how to use her powers for good and to make a positive impact on the world. Once inside the empty cottage, Anna immediately starts practicing, unleashing her fiery powers. However, as flames scatter around uncontrollably, our hero realizes teaching her magic control is going to be tougher than he thought. On top of that, there's the issue that every time she uses her powers, her clothes get incinerated, leaving her embarrassed and naked. Both of them feel awkward, but our hero is relieved he had prepared multiple sets of clothes ahead of time. Just then, the old man bursts in with urgent news. While gasping for breath, he shocks everyone by reporting that their patrols have spotted signs of demon activity months earlier than expected this year. Of course, our hero has no clue about these months of demons, and seeing everyone terrified only piques his curiosity further. The old man reveals to the clueless prince that every winter, after the first snowfall and when the sun sets, the gates of hell open in the Dragonspine Mountains. Bordertown isn't defensible, so everyone must flee to Longsong Fortress. However, the old man reassures him that his safety is their top priority. Curious, the boy asks if the old man has seen these gates of hell himself. The old man replies no, explaining that it's impossible for them to see such things. The Dragonspine Mountains are not only impassable, but also emit a foul miasma that affects anyone who gets too close, unless they've already fallen into the devil's grasp, meaning only witches can explore the area and see the gates of hell. The prince then wonders if the old man has ever encountered demons. Once again, the answer is no. It's his first time in the central region of Grey Castle, and hardly anyone's ever come face to face with a real demon. Looks like it makes sense to our hero why this place doesn't thrive with a bustling economy, because people always get evacuated at the end of every year. The boy then raises a valid point, which is that if Longsong Fortress can fend off the demons, it means they're not invincible. So keeping that in mind, he is itching to throw down with these demons by himself. The old man is terrified by this plan and explains that Longsong Fortress has massive walls and Duke Rayon's elite troops stationed there. They're formidable, and Border Town is located in the North Slope Mountains, which serve as an early warning system for Longsong Fortress about impending threats. But our hero remains resolute and instructs the old man to gather local soldiers who have experience fighting demons. In the bright day under this gazebo, we see our duo having afternoon snacks, and while they are at it, the prince requests her to tell him something about months of demons. The lady immediately complies. Her tone gets somber as she describes the hellish experience of the months of demons. Unlike big shots like our hero, commoners here deal with this nightmare every single year. She explains that her father, a miner like many others in town, struggles daily to survive. When the months of demons begin, the people of Border Town send their year's mining production to Longsong Fortress in exchange for next year's rations and some gold royals. During this time, everyone takes shelter at Longsong Fortress until winter passes. One year, the months of demons lasted a brutal 4 months straight. City officials at Longsong Fortress said the ore they produced in autumn could only buy 3 months' worth of food. The 4th month's supply had to wait for new ore. But the months of demons lasted another extra month, which trapped the people inside the fortress. And to top it off, the grub from Longsong was divided between people equally, leading to the strong bullying the weak. The prince gets ticked off hearing her sad story, and he straight up tells the lady that no one's gonna suffer through those months of demons again. Leaving the gazebo, our hero asks to meet with the consultant to check on progress. The scene shifts to the Border Town Administrative Office, where Consultant Baroff has brought 3 folks. 2 are soldiers, big shots in charge of the Border Town Patrol and lighting the beacon every year. The 3rd is a hunter who claims he's faced demons before, even bagging one himself. At first, one of the scared soldiers stumbles through his words in front of the prince, muttering gibberish that makes no sense. The prince then nudges the other soldier to speak up. The other one then explains that the demons used to be regular critters in the forest, but the evil miasma turned them into savage beasts. They're tough, but still killable. Once the months of demons wrap up, Longsong Fortress sends out cavalry to mop up any stragglers in the area. That's when the hunter slams his fist on the ground like he's showing off, boasting that those monsters are as easy as slicing cucumbers with his sword, and he's taken down 2 already. The big guy then drops to his knees before our prince. The consultant introduces the hunter as Iron Axe, saying there's gossip he's so tall because of his giant monster blood in his veins from the Mojin clan. Our hero asks him straight up if his stories are true. Iron Axe nods confidently, saying he's already killed a demonic boar and a wolf type. Iron Axe explains how hunters categorize demons. As the guard mentioned, these critters started out as regular animals but went berserk after they got a taste of hell miasma, and which is why they're such a pain. The wolf type is sneaky and lightning fast, and the wild boar has a tough back which is so thick that even crossbows struggle to pierce it. The prince quickly realizes that these demons are essentially animals, but with enhanced traits. The hunter agrees, saying they don't pose much of a threat. However, he gets serious when discussing hybrid types, calling them the true spawn of the devil. He explains that these monsters are horrifying creations that only hell could concoct. Describing one hybrid, the hunter mentions it had the body and legs of a rugged beast, but also sported huge wings for short-distance flight. What's more, its senses were keen, always pinpointing its prey no matter how well hidden. The hunter barely survived by diving into the Redwater River before losing consciousness. It seems our hero can handle the regular monsters with big walls, but he's stumped on how to deal with those that can fly. He then asks his knight if those hybrid demon types are supposed to be rare, and the knight nods firmly, saying during any months of demons, you'll usually get 2 or 3 of those bad boys popping up. It's enough to give Longsong Fortress a serious headache. The boy finally connects the dots. With a bang on the table, he announces he's staying put in Border Town for the winter. Everyone's jaws drop at his decision, and the knight scrambles to convince him they're outnumbered by monsters. Our hero fires back, suggesting they build a wall from the foot of North Slope Mountain to the Redwater River. But the knight ain't buying it, and waves it off as a pipe dream, saying it'd take them a lifetime to build such a wall. My guy leans back, telling the knight to chill. He promises if he can't get the wall up fast, he'll retreat like everyone else, because he is not about to throw his life away in this place either. The riled-up knight finally calms down, pleading his loyalty to save our hero at any costs. At the bustling gray castle port of Clearwater, we catch a glimpse of the 3rd princess. She remarks on the chilly ocean breeze, signaling winter's approach, then turns to her knight, Rayon, asking about the return of their black sail fleet. He assures her they should be back at port in 3 days if all goes well. The princess notes this is their last expedition of the year and hopes it brings some nice surprises. Back in the palace, the knight wonders how she was already geared up for the throne competition her father sprung on them. She admits she didn't see it coming, but she figures it's all about paving the way for the king's favorite son to take the throne. Still, She laughs it off, saying being good at running things doesn't automatically mean the second son will win. She tells her knight to dig deeper and understand why she's sending out the Black Sail Fleet on this big expedition. After mulling it over, the knight realizes her fleet isn't just about making money, it's about gaining serious influence and power. Since launching the Black Sail plan, she's rounded up skilled sailors, tough fighters, and key allies to back her play. This is Garcia Wimbledon, the third princess of Grey Castle. She is using smarts and strategy to secure her shot at the throne. The princess then asks about how their plot to off the fourth prince went down. The knight sighs and says there's been no word from the border, meaning their poison plan probably flopped and the spies they sent to do the job are missing in action. She figures her little bro must have wasted no time offing those spies once they got caught. Looks like the poison actually did its job and killed the fourth prince, but our hero just happened to swap into his body, which is why they think their poison plan tanked. She's now planning to kill the hero once he seeks refuge in Longsong Fortress, and tells her knight to sit tight until then. She also snarks that since the poison didn't do squat, it means that Snake Enbies, who sold them that stuff, was lying about it being colorless and tasteless. And as punishment for deceiving the third princess, she suggests her knight to hang that liar immediately. It's quite funny how she's about to drop the hammer on their reliable poison guy, even though the fourth prince really did kick the bucket from that poison. The next scene shows us Anna setting in the landscape of greenery, and there we meet her teacher Carl, who asks her what she is reading today. Is it poetry, or perhaps history of their church? The girl greets her teacher, and before she can say anything, her innocent image shatters before his eyes. He is left staring with wide eyes, and the next scene takes him to a rowdy crowd accusing his disciple of being a witch and the reincarnation of the devil. Seeing her hanging there, he slaps his hands over his face, jolting awake in his office. Once he's finally awake, he breathes heavily, haunted by the vision of Anna's hanging. He believes that if even a pure-hearted girl like Anna could be called evil, then those greedy administrative officials of Grey Castle must be true demons, born from the depths of hell. He angrily expresses that if they hadn't switched to lower-quality stones just to save a few hundred gold, the theater would never have collapsed, and those innocent victims would still be alive. In his eyes, those corrupt individuals are the ones who truly deserve to be hanged for their heinous acts and corruption. Sadly, this country didn't administer proper punishment to them. Instead, the blame fell unfairly on innocent stonemasons, resulting in harsh taxes, rampant inequality, little rule of law, and even labeling a curious and innocent girl as a demon and sending her cruelly to the gallows. He appeals to God for help in punishing these deserving evil people. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and when he opens it, he finds one of his young students, Nana, looking really worried and anxious. The little girl timidly asks if she's going to end up like Anna, hanged. The man quickly reassures her with a pat on the head, promising to protect her no matter what. He strolls through town, thoughts swirling about how the powerful have mistreated the innocent while he stood by. Determined to act this time, he vows not to let another girl suffer like Anna did. His attention is then drawn to a commotion at the town square. People are gathered around the quest board, where they're reading a notice posted by the fourth prince. It calls for workers for construction jobs in the border areas, gravel workers, stonemasons, and more. The notice details everything the applicants need to know. The teacher's eyes widen in shock as he sees the notice signed and stamped with our hero's name. That's when he remembers our hero, the fourth prince. He's heard rumors about the prince having all sorts of unique ideas and a personality that's totally different from everyone else. The prince also doesn't seem to be a big fan of the church, which gives the teacher a bit of hope. But right now, he's worried that supporting Anna, who is a witch, might get him labeled as a witch sympathizer and land him on the gallows as well. He's banking on the idea that if the prince hates the church enough, maybe he also hates their strict laws. That's the only way he sees to protect other girls from facing the church's severe punishments for being witches. We're back with our hero again, and his knight is questioning him about the dimensions of the wall he plans to build. Our hero says it'll be 15 feet tall and 6 feet wide, enough for 4 people to stand side by side on top. The knight then mentions they'll need to dig a trench as deep as a person is tall to stabilize such a massive structure. With the wall being 15 feet tall and 6 feet wide at the top, the base width will need to be doubled for stability. Even with 350 craftsmen working simultaneously on digging and building, they can only promise to finish before next year's months of demons. The prince curiously asks what the main challenge will be, which is taking such a long time. The knight explains that the real issue lies in laying the wall itself. They'll have to carefully select and polish each rock to ensure they fit together properly. Otherwise, the wall won't hold up well. The prince decides to move ahead with his knight's plan to dig the trench and build the wall at the same time. When it comes to laying the wall, he reassures his knight and reveals about Grey Castle's alchemy workshop producing a new thing called cement, which is bound to impress everyone. Naturally, the knight is all ears, because he has never heard of something known as cement in his entire life. In the next scene, we're outside the cement kiln room at Border Town, where we see both of them standing outside of the cottage. The prince explains to us that making cement is pretty straightforward because the raw materials are plentiful here. But the real trick lies in getting the calcination temperature just right. Sadly, he can't recall the exact temperature needed, and there's no way to measure it precisely in this world. Suddenly, the cottage door swings open, revealing Anna. Before the prince steps inside, our hero tells his knight to hang back. It's clear that the prince is using Anna's witch powers to create his cement, and she seems perfectly suited for the task. Before she heads out fully naked, our hero hands over his coat to her once more, and once she is out of the cottage, she eagerly expresses that she has done as her prince had asked of her. Inside, we find a heap of cement on the floor. The boy quickly checks the product to see if their experiment paid off, and decides to give it a try before producing at mass scale. Curiously, Anna asks where he plans to use the cement. The boy explains it can be used for building homes, bridges, roads, and more. He highlights how it will protect them from natural disasters like rain, heat, or snow that could otherwise damage their homes. He gives all the credit for the success of making the cement to Anna, recognizing her crucial role. Outside the cottage, they finally glue a few square boulders together with the cement, and both the knight and the girl are pleasantly surprised by the result. The knight can't help but marvel at this amazing discovery, while our hero inspects closely and is equally surprised that it feels much sturdier than what you would get from compacting ordinary dirt and mud together. The knight even tries to pry the boulders apart, but despite exerting all his force, he can't seem to budge them, let alone unstick them. The prince reminds his knight that he's been underestimating things because this stuff is better made than he originally thought. The knight is also amazed by this fascinating invention of sticky stuff that turns into solid rock in no time. He's pretty confident that with this, they could easily cover the entire border in 5 years. But our guy dismisses the need for such a grand project, saying even the tallest walls can't keep out enemies from within. Their first enemy is the fight against natural disasters to ensure their people don't end up homeless. He's determined to prove to the world that witches are humanity's most productive asset. From the next day in the cottage, the prince got down to mass-producing cement with the help of the workers who responded to the recruitment notice. They hustled to gather essential ingredients and supplies, giving Anna some well-deserved rest. Meanwhile, the prince kicked off the excavation for the city wall's foundation between the North Slope Mountain and the Redwater River. However, things didn't go as smoothly as expected. The knight was impressed that the prince personally visited the construction site and gave the workers a pep talk at the North Slope. He noted their dedication, but the prince grinned sheepishly, admitting that despite their efforts, all they managed to dig was a rough trench at the North Slope, a makeshift drainage ditch rather than the sturdy foundation needed for a city wall. Even though our hero used to geek out over mechanical blueprints, paired with his civil engineer buddy, they made quite the geeky duo. But now, tackling these civil project details is way beyond his expertise, and he's itching for a pro in the field to brainstorm ideas with. Interrupting his moment of contemplation, the consultant points out that a stonemason has responded to their recruitment notice, claiming to have been a member of the Grey Castle Mason Guild. The prince immediately recognizes the guild as a prominent organization in the country, though he's heard they were disbanded due to a construction accident. He then shrugs it off, pointing out that risks are always present in this line of work. He is eager to secure highly talented individuals, and instructs his consultant to bring the stonemason to see him. The next scene takes us to Roland's administrative office in Bordertown. Our hero lounges at his desk, idly passing the time, while Anna sits nearby, absorbed in a book. Finally, the knight arrives with the person our hero has been eager to meet. To our surprise, it's none other than the teacher who had been fretting about his little witches. Before the teacher can start extolling the prince, our hero cuts in, waving off the formalities and telling him to relax. When the teacher's gaze falls upon Anna, he looks completely bewildered, his mind clearly spinning. Meanwhile, both our hero and the knight are totally dumbfounded to see this unexpected meet and greet. Sensing potential trouble, the prince quickly directs the knight to block the door. The knight immediately follows the command, positioning himself at the entrance, ready to not let this threatening man go away. Our hero finds it hard to believe that a random craftsman could end up being a neighbor of Anna. But then, the teacher suddenly falls to his knees, pleading for forgiveness from Anna for not helping her in the times she needed him the most. That is when it becomes clear to the prince that this man poses no threat to her after all. Anna also recognizes her teacher immediately. The prince then instructs the man to stand and demands an explanation about his relationship with Anna. The man immediately pulls himself together and quickly apologizes for causing a scene. He then introduces himself as Carl Van Bate, a former member of the Mason Guild turned teacher in the border town. He reveals that Anna was once his student. Carl further points out that he doesn't really understand why our hero would spare Anna's life. Perhaps he wants her as his lover, but he isn't complaining since being beheaded is still better than being a prince's side chick. Carl is further relieved to see that our hero doesn't believe in witches being incarnations of the devil. After explaining everything thoroughly to the prince, The man further mentions that there's another talented girl like Anna, whom he would like our hero to also keep hidden here in the palace. The prince gladly gives this teacher the green light to bring her here, promising no harm will come to her if she truly is a witch. However, he can't simply take her away from her family, especially since they aren't directly threatening her at the moment. Our guy bursts into happiness inwardly, looking forward to meeting this next witch and discovering her formidable abilities, though outwardly he remains composed and calm. The prince clarifies that he didn't save the girl out of kindness, but because he needs her help. He doesn't believe in those nonsensical tales that portray witch powers as evil. Instead, he sees them as valuable gifts if handled wisely and used responsibly. So whether it's Anna, this other girl Nana, or any other witch, as long as they haven't committed actual crimes, he won't presume them guilty in any way. Once that's out of the way, our hero finally gets down to business and asks the man if he's ever helped build in Grey Castle Town. The man nods enthusiastically, saying he's had plenty of experience. The prince then lays out his plan to erect a wall between the foot of the North Slope Mountain and the Redwater River to keep those demonic critters at bay. From now on, this guy's in charge of the whole project. In the next scene, we're in Roland's Palace Gardens in Border Town, where Nana finally pays our hero a visit. She looks a bit nervous at first glance. When the little girl asks if she's really seeing Prince Roland Wimbledon, the prince grins and confirms it's him in the flesh. Nana lights up and introduces herself as Nana Pine. Without missing a beat, Nana dashes over to Anna and starts playing with her like they've been sisters forever. The prince wondering these girls are really young, and yet they are a talented bunch, so he is really looking forward to see what future have store in for them. The boy then turns to the little girl, reminding her that her teacher mentioned she's awakened as a witch. The girl asks if he's going to execute her, but the boy quickly says no, explaining that only criminals with a rap sheet end up facing the gallows or a beheading. The girl insists she's possessed by a devil, which her teacher also confirmed. Anna gives her a reassuring pat on the head, while our hero asks when she first noticed something was up. She explains it all started a week ago when she saw a bird with a busted leg. Feeling a strong urge to help, something like water blobs popped into her mind and surrounded the bird, and the bird's leg got healed instantly. After hearing her story, the prince tells his knight to go grab a chicken. As the knight heads off to find a healthy one, our hero wonders if her awakened powers might lean towards healing, which is nothing to scoff at. The prince then tells her that if she can save animals like that bird, it means she's actually a good person. The girl agrees, saying their teacher also told them that regular folks fear witches just because they can do things others can't. She insists she's never seen a devil and isn't connected to one either. Our hero believes her right away and gives her a gentle pat on the head, reminding her that the church and even their teacher were tricked by lies. Confused, the girl asks why anyone would lie. The boy explains it's not about good or bad, it's about people trying to make money by spreading fake stories. Once the chicken arrives, the little girl asks the prince to go easy on it. The boy agrees, but tells his knight to hold the chicken tight before giving it a quick whack on the head. The poor bird squawks in pain and flops to the ground. He then turns to the girl and urges her to heal the chicken pronto. She nods, saying she'll do her best. When she lays her hand on it, those watery blobs pop up again, and she gets to work right away. A few hours pass, and despite the boy's rough treatment, which leaves the chicken drained, he finally seems to understand Nana's power. She can fix up broken bits and mend fractures, though bringing a chicken back from the dead isn't in her playbook. Once the chicken has served its purpose, the boy tells his knight to take it to the kitchen, leaving the girl with tears in her eyes and a pout for how rough the prince was with the chicken. But he assures her it was necessary. Before long, a feast of delicious food appears before them. Nana seems to forget her chicken grievance as she eagerly eyes the cooked bird laid out before her. After their little feast, the little girl heads off, waving her hand one last time, and our hero waves back in response. Meanwhile, Anna is curious why our hero is not keeping her in the palace, knowing she's a witch too. He reminds her that she still has a family who doesn't know about her powers yet. But Anna worries it's only a matter of time before her parents find out and exile her. He agrees, but reassures her that as long as her abilities remain secret, she should cherish the time with her parents. He then asks if she misses her father. She sadly shakes her head with a no, but our hero can empathize with the loneliness she feels. To ease her mind, he promises that Nana will come daily to practice magic with her so she won't feel alone, and further vows to give both girls the ordinary life they desire. And he means every word. Back in the castle, our hero's been feeling kinda boring ever since Carl Van Bate took charge of the wall construction. He's taken to having a tea party every afternoon while teaching the girls how to work their magic. Every now and then, he checks on the city wall's progress at the foot of the North Slope Mountain, always impressed by how much better it's going than expected. But then, the consultant shows up with some not-so-great news. He points out that hiring all those craftsmen and laborers has been super expensive, and all that cash is coming straight out of our hero's pocket. At this rate, the steward's worried they won't have enough money left by spring. Our hero officially starts to panic, realizing that he is freaking screwed. A moment later, while he's brainstorming ideas to get out of this financial mess, the old man finds it strange how much the prince has changed lately, as if he's become a completely different person. Back in the day, this guy knew nothing but the pleasures of life, and the only reason this old man sticks with our hero is because the king has promised him the position of Minister of Finance once the throne competition is over. When he first rolled into Border Town, he wasn't planning on running the place, nor was he gunning for the throne. He let down all the nobles and dumped all the responsibilities on the old man's lap. But ever since he rescued that witch, the prince has done a complete 180. The prince is now handling things with more thought and dealing with stuff like it's his second nature. He even talks to the old man in this grown-up tone that's seriously creeping the old dude out, making him wonder if the prince got possessed by a devil or something. But the old man brushes it off, saying if the prince were really possessed, he wouldn't have casually snagged that godforsaken retribution locket. Cut to the scene back at the port in Border Town. Two nobles and this redhead guy, who looks like some ambassador, are shooting the breeze. The guy in glasses reminds the ambassador they last swung by a year ago and gripes that the town's still a desolate pile of rocks. The redhead pipes up, correcting him that it was just 6 months back. He mentions how every season Duke randomly sends someone new here. He remembers visiting last summer, when besides rocks, there were all kinds of fancy furs floating around. When he is about to spill something juicy, he decides to keep it under wraps for some reason, and instead, he focuses on Border Town's potential. He suggests that although it's currently just a fortress outpost, if they set up a solid defense line here, all the land between Border Town and the fortress could be put to good use. Suddenly, the guy in glasses freaks out, pointing out that the stockpile is empty and Border Town was supposed to have their ore ready today. Looks like these visitors are here to collect ore before the demon months hit, offering shelter for the Border Town in return. The ambassador sighs and decides to take the problem to our hero. They ride back on their horses. The guy with purple hair wonders if Border Town found a new trade partner, or already sold their ore to Willowtown or Fallen Dragon Ridge. He's pretty sure it's the fourth prince's doing, who is our hero by the way. The redhead thinks hard, pondering if the prince has already set up deals with towns further down on the Redwater River. If so, they've lost yet another bargaining chip. He worries that if they try the same monopoly play as before, they're not likely to succeed since the fourth prince already has other trade partners to take their ore to sell. Once they get to the castle, they're greeted with this incredible feast. The ambassador, not sure how to handle chopsticks, glances over at our hero and awkwardly tries to eat the same way, struggling to even pick up his food. As his food flies off the chopsticks, the ambassador feels embarrassed, while the prince casually mentions that these sticks are easier and cheaper to make compared to forks, and once he introduces them to his town people, no one will have to worry about getting sick from eating with their bare hands. As the sun starts to dip, casting a golden glow over the castle, the prince is about to enjoy desserts after their impromptu dinner. Finally, the ambassador brings up the reason for their visit, pointing out that they came to collect ore as usual, only to find none at the dockyard this time. That's when our hero drops the bad news. There was a landslide at the North Slope Mountain recently. They've been trying to clear the rubble and resume production this month, but it looks like the mine won't reopen until sometime next year. The ambassador then asks about the production from previous months. Our hero simply shrugs and says it was lower than usual, barely enough to keep everyone fed. He adds that even if they manage to scrape together enough ore, it won't buy more than 2 months' worth of wheat. So, he suggests they totally revamp their deal. The ambassador looks worried and tries to reel our hero back in, apologizing for past screw-ups. He proposes that the 6 noble families of the fortress pool together to lend enough food for 1 month, promising they'll pay it back next year. But our hero isn't having it. He flat out says if they sell the ore to Willowtown, they won't owe anyone a thing. And here's the twist. The Willowtown is offering gold dragon coins in exchange for their ore. Plus, they're ready to trade wheat, cheese, bread, and honey, all at fair prices. Anything you can buy with gold dragons, they're happy to sell. Compared to dealing with Longsong Fortress, this new setup makes way more sense for the border town. Our hero asks the ambassador another question, pointing out if he even has enough influence to make that decision on behalf of the other families willing to lend 1 month's worth of food. Our hero quickly catches on that the ambassador is a member of the honeysuckle family, with this emblem being a dead giveaway. The prince acknowledges that the ambassador might be from one of the 6 families, but questions whether he can really convince Duke Ryan and the others to agree, or if he can guarantee it. Looks like our hero is hitting the nail on the head as the ambassador's face turns sour like a lemon. The scene flashes back to when the ambassador tried to reason with his father, arguing that the new ruler of Border Town, the 4th prince, definitely wouldn't agree to exchange his minerals and gemstones for some food and bread. He suggested buying from them at 30% under the market price, as they could still make substantial profits. But this bald machismo of a father confidently brushed off the concern, saying the sloth-like 4th prince would never handle Border Town's trade affairs. He believed they could continue swindling border towns' resources for mere bread and shelter. In the present moment, the redhead ambassador, after thinking it through, realizes our hero has a point. He couldn't even convince his own father, but still wants to try his best. So, the redhead takes the plunge and offers to buy the ore and gemstones from Border Town at 30% below market price. The ambassador is confident his offer must be higher than what Willowtown is proposing. He emphasizes that Willowtown is far away, making it difficult to seek shelter during the demon months, which is why Longsong Fortress is the best option for shelter. The ambassador starts to mention the bad roads leading to Willowtown, but stops himself mid-sentence. Curious, our hero urges him to finish his thought. The redhead points out the dangers that could easily spring up along that road. The ambassador realizes he may have inadvertently issued a threat to a prince and starts panicking internally. Our hero just chuckles, dispelling the redhead's confusion, and explains that he never intended to seek refuge in Willowtown in the first place. That bombshell catches the redhead off guard, and he really throws the ambassador for a loop by making it crystal clear he's not going anywhere, not to Longsong Fortress or anywhere else. The prince goes on to explain that Border Town isn't just going to be some outpost anymore. It's going to be a full-fledged part of Grey Castle Kingdom. He's pumped to show off the brand new city walls stretching all the way from the North Slope Mountains to the Redwater River. The redhead's jaw practically hits the floor, and he double-checks with our hero if he heard right. The boy nods firmly, stressing they're putting up this wall right here in Border Town to keep those demons at bay. The redhead's mind flashes back to some fancy banquet where nobles were roasting our prince for starting construction projects just as the demon months were rolling in. Everyone had a good laugh at what they thought was our hero's cluelessness. At first, the redhead figured it was all just rich folks teasing each other for kicks. He never imagined our prince was serious about this whole wall thing. What's really mind-boggling is how our prince, known for chasing pleasure and not much else, is suddenly taking charge of something so massive. The redhead, freaking out a bit, assures our hero that once he's back at the fortress, he'll try to hash things out with the 6 noble families, hoping it'll all swing in our hero's favor. Now it's smack dab in the middle of the night, and our hero's feeling bummed that nightlife in this backwoods world is non-existent. People here hit the bed early unless they're up for clapping some cheeks. Even though he could easily bring someone over to liven up his night, he's got morals and won't stoop to anything sketchy. Out of the blue, someone sneaks up on our hero from behind. He spins around to find a woman in a robe singing his praises for handling the ambassador with brains, hinting the prince isn't all about the party life after all. Turns out she's an assassin, but our hero doesn't waste a second before trying to dash out of the room. The woman throws her dagger, stopping him in his tracks, and reassures him she's only here to chat, telling him to chill out and not panic. The boy stops dead in his tracks, especially with that sharp dagger staring him down, and asks the lady who she might be. She drops the bomb that she has no name but goes by Nightingale, a nickname her sisters gave her for some weird reason. She's surprisingly grateful for our hero's recent care towards witches. When the prince takes a closer look, he notices an emblem similar to the one the old man showed him, which belonged to the Witch Association. The lady gives him props again for his sharp mind, while our hero presses on, asking if she's here for Anna. He admits he has no clue how she knows about Anna, but still reassures the women that she is still alive. The lady nods, saying she already knows that much, and points out that even if she was killed, the Witch Association wouldn't appreciate meddling in politics by killing a prince just because a witch was killed. But she's quick to warn him not to underestimate them. The boy reassures her once again that Anna's doing well. The woman casually replies she already knows, and she's also aware of the other girl named Nana. Then she gives him the creeps by casually dropping that she's been spying on him for the past 2 weeks, keeping tabs on his every move, which really gets under our hero's skin. Because let's face it, this idiot did not have a single clue if he is being spied on. She gestures for our hero to come closer, assuring him she has no intention of harming him. Reluctantly, the boy sits before her, sensing no ill intentions. But then the woman gets uncomfortably close. Noting he's different because he shows no fear towards her or any other witches, she inches even closer. The prince steps back, half-jokingly telling her to keep it PG, not wanting YouTube to slap age restrictions on the video. The lady finally withdraws her hand and gets straight to the point that she's here to take Anna and Nana. The boy immediately refuses without hesitation, insisting they're happy here and safe under his watch. But the lady argues they'd be safer with the Witch Association, where they will be treated like family by every member. But the boy keeps pressing on, noting that the Witch Association doesn't even have a fixed place to call home. He mentions how his soldiers stumbled upon one of their camps hidden in a forest about a month ago, and the tracks led north. However, in that direction, there are only endless mountains. The lady defends their choice, saying they're based in desolate mountains to stay safe from outsiders and dangers. But the boy isn't convinced, bringing up the lack of basic necessities there that would make life difficult for the girls. He also remembers what the old man told him about the association's goal, which is to gather all witches and find the holy mountains, where witches can truly be safe. He asks if the lady has the same goal in mind. Cryptically, the lady responds that she can't give him an answer. This annoys the boy further, as he insists he won't let the girls live in such barren lands where only demons could thrive. That's when a light bulb goes off in his head, catching the lady totally off guard with what he says next. He invites the entire witch association to come to Border Town for the winter, looking all pleased with himself as he tries to convince her it won't be much trouble to wait until winter passes. The lady reminds him that while the prince may not fear witches, the townsfolk will likely freak out. Plus, the church will pounce the moment they catch wind that witches are staying in Border Town. But our hero is adamant, and wants to show everyone that witches aren't evil, especially if they help the town get through the tough months of demons. The lady then mentions another reason why she wants to take both ladies, especially Anna, who's almost the coming of age. Of course, this point sails right over our hero's head until the lady confirms he heard right. She explains that most witches awaken around the time of the months of demons, or when the gates of hell supposedly open. Basically, coming of age is a witch's final stage, and a woman who hasn't awakened her powers by 18 won't ever become a witch. Once a witch comes of age, during the months of demons, demons take over their minds, causing unbearable agony. It feels like something's trying to burst out of their bodies, straining every vein and tendon to the limit. If they survive, they'll recover after 4 or 5 days, but for those who don't, it's a brutal death. That's why witches are seen as the devil's spawn, and their horrific deaths, mixed with church propaganda, make people think they're possessed by demons. The boy then asks what happens once they hit adulthood, to which the lady explains that their powers will stabilize and often get even stronger, with some even picking up new abilities. Our hero questions how valid this all is. Old records claim that witches find eternal peace on the holy mountain and are spared from demons consuming their minds. The lady admits there's nothing concrete about the holy mountain, it's only mentioned in texts. Taking her to headquarters might slightly increase her chances of survival. If witches could live freely without being hunted, the demonic attacks would be way less severe. The boy realizes that Anna and Nana are key players in his big plan, but he's worried about putting them in danger if he goes ahead with it. He quickly agrees to let the lady take Anna if she's up for it. As for Nana, he decides to wait until tomorrow to talk to her about it. The witch is delighted to hear our hero's wise decision, but when he summons Anna and asks her about it, she immediately declines, saying she's not going anywhere. This shocks both adults, and the woman tries to reason with her, explaining that she can sense the demonic energy building within her as she nears maturity. She reminds Anna about the whole puberty talk she had with our hero earlier. Anna then reminds our hero how he promised her an ordinary life, but she couldn't care less about anything because all she wants is to stay by the prince's side. She's confident that the demonic energy won't stand a chance against her, and she's determined to survive the months of demons and conquer her puberty. The woman sighs and decides to give up on convincing Anna, but she makes it clear she'll stick around to watch over her until she experiences her maturity. She thinks Anna is just a naive kid who doesn't understand the dangers. Of course, our hero doesn't like the idea of her keeping a watchful eye on him for the rest of the winter. Anyway, before the woman disappears, she comes face to face with Anna and talks about the hardships she's seen and the friends she's lost, vowing not to let Anna suffer the same fate. With those final words, she bids farewell to our girl and vanishes into thin air without a trace. Seeing her abilities totally blows our hero's mind. He's amazed by her assassination skills. Once they're alone, the boy gives Anna a reassuring pat on the head and tells her to hit the hay as it's already pretty late for her. The next day rolls around and our hero greets the citizens of the town with a cheery, "Good morning." He gathers everyone for an important announcement. He explains that almost 4 days ago, the ambassador from Longsong Fortress visited him to collect the already mined ore. However, everyone should remember that a month ago, the northern mining quarry collapsed, and production hasn't resumed since then. The community immediately panics because the last output was only half of the average, and they had to endure starvation and a lot of crap from Longsong. He then exposes the Longsong Fortress hideous act, saying he tried to get a loan and supplies from the ambassador, but the guy shut him down hard, just like 2 years back. People freak out again, fearing starvation once again. He reminds them of the time when food was so scarce that many lost family, siblings, kids, and more. He asks them how long they want this cycle of loss to continue. The crowd starts begging him to save them, and he nods positively, swearing he won't let his people fall into that pit again. After a dramatic cough, he drops the bomb, which is that 2 months' worth of mining would have bought them enough food for almost a year, but those Longsong jerks never played fair. The whole crowd starts to seethe at Longsong Fortress for taking advantage like that. So, our hero explains that he traded his stones for a bunch of food from Willowtown, enough to keep everyone fed through the winter. Just as folks start celebrating and feeling relieved, he puts a pause on the party vibes. He reminds them that cutting ties with Longsong means they're committing to sticking it out in Border Town for the winter. That news sets off another round of worry, but the boy quickly shifts gears, reminding everyone about the wall they're building. He boosts their spirits by saying demons aren't any tougher than the beasts in the forest and won't be able to scale their wall no matter how hard they try. Then he gives them a choice: either seek refuge to starve in Longsong Fortress or stand with him to protect their families. He asks if anyone's up for joining him on the wall to fend off monsters, promising good silver coin rewards for those who help out. And if the worst happens and someone doesn't make it, he pledges 5 golden coins to their family. The whole crowd gets fired up by his speech, and suddenly everyone's geared up to face whatever comes their way with determination and grit. The atmosphere in Longsong Fortress is lively with laughter echoing through the entire castle. People seem to be having a good time poking fun at our hero's decision to stay put in Border Town and build a wall. One guy, sporting a solid mustache, jokes that our hero would probably stack some rough rocks together, throw in some dirt and mud, and call it a day. He is sure that eventually our hero will come running back to Longsong, and they can further exploit him when he's desperate. However, the leader of this committee doesn't seem to dismiss our hero as lightly as the others. He asks for the ambassador's take on the matter. The redhead, bewildered at first, mentions that their original plan was to maintain their monopoly as usual, and as long as they purchase ores from our hero at 3 times lower than the market price, it's a good deal for them. But our hero has other plans. He's not just looking to sell the ores to only Longsong Fortresses. He's willing to cut the price of ores by half, aims to stimulate higher demand and thereby increase overall production capacity and revenue for Border Town. This approach is a strategic move to foster economic growth and sustainability in the region, and because of that price cut in ores, the Longsong Fortress will be able to earn much more than they earned in the past. Additionally, he intends to manufacture iron tools, which he believes will fly off the shelves no matter where they were sold, making an additional stream of income. However, those aren't the only things to think about. If our hero can hold off the demons at Border Town, it's good news for Longsong too. They won't have to keep dealing with those pesky beasts every year. Plus, the throne squabble is only 5 years long, so if Border Town flourishes afterward, Longsong could end up with the kingdom's 3rd biggest slice of land. The red-headed guy suggests that Longsong should pitch in to help our prince build the wall and defend Border Town. He figures it'll pay off in the end. The old man agrees with the redhead's practical sense but calls it typical merchant thinking. To this white-haired fellow, it's not about whether Border Town succeeds or fails. He just doesn't want to share his turf with anyone, prince or not. The next day, Chief Knight's face was priceless when he laid eyes on the contraption our prince had been tinkering with. True to form, he showered all the credit on Anna, who'd helped with welding the metal parts. The prince couldn't contain his excitement over his latest creation, which is a steam engine. He hugged his beautiful invention tightly, seeing it as the first step towards ushering humanity into an industrial revolution fueled by a new energy source. 5 minutes later, the knight still looked baffled, trying to wrap his head around how the machine worked. When Anna fired up the furnace below, the cogs and gears started turning, and soon enough, the wheel began spinning faster and faster. Watching the mechanical parts move left the knight completely awestruck. It was his first glimpse of the natural power the prince had been talking about, which is a force equal to the strength of 10 knights combined, and this innovation promised to save a ton of manual and animal labor. Training a knight took 15 years, but building a contraption like this stove only took 3 days. The knight found it fascinating that it didn't need feeding, didn't care about weather, and was impervious to arrows or blades. Seeing this, he started to wonder if traditional knights were even necessary in a world with such machines. The boy was totally stoked to see his farming game jump forward by a few hundred years. Later that night, our hero swung open his bedroom door and found the assassin lady once again, deep into studying the blueprints he'd made. He gave her a bit of a hard time for spying on him and just waltzing into his room unannounced. But the lady just chuckles, pointing out how the 4th prince was rumored to be a total flop with a lousy personality, yet his inventions were master class. She wondered if those blueprints were for the stove he'd cooked up recently, but the boy was feeling kinda down and out, watching her toy with his secret plans he had kept locked up tight in his office. Seeing her impressed, he attributes all of the credit to Anna once again, and explains that the machine could be used for anything needing a lot of muscle, like getting stuff around or making stuff. The lady smiles upon hearing this, and lets our boy know that she'll be keeping these blueprints, since there are many witches in the association who can make good use of firepower. As she tucks them into her robe, the idiot's eyes accidentally drift over her cleavage, and he stumbles over his words in embarrassment, telling her he didn't give permission for that. She just smirks and says she already has something as payment, tossing a document at him she pulled from her chest. The boy eagerly grabbed it and tore it open, only to find it addressed to his servant Tyre. The letter sternly instructed Tyre not to repeat the same mistake and was ordered to eliminate the prince during the months of demons. The boy's mind races, recalling how Prince Roland used to exploit her whenever he could, and our hero feels deeply unsettled by these memories. The woman then tells him she snatched it from one of the pigeons, mentioning there wasn't any signature on the letter, but she thinks it might have been sent by one of his siblings. So she asks if he's cool with her digging deeper to find out who's behind these orders. He gives her the go-ahead, and she strikes a respectful pose, saying she'll be taking the blueprints as payment. The next day, he's still hung up on last night's letter when the knight shows up. The guy drops to his knees and spills that Tyre kicked the bucket last night. Apparently, she took a tumble from her balcony, and there weren't any signs of a struggle, and the guards swear they didn't see anyone come or go. The boy's visibly bummed out and tells the knight to have the head servant handle the situation. Once the knight had left the room, our hero called the assassin lady back, and she showed up right on cue. She quickly spilled the beans that the servant had killed herself the moment she laid eyes on her. The boy couldn't hide his disappointment, muttering that he figured she'd know how to handle such things. The lady countered, saying she had tied Tyre with ropes up tight, but the wily servant had stashed poison in her fake tooth, and once she died out of poison, she threw the servant from the balcony to make it look like an accident. Even though her interrogation had hit a dead end, she whipped out another note from her cleavage and revealed that this is what she found out in her apartment. With a sly grin, she points out that the sender called Tyre Big Sister and mentioned a seaside view a lot. She hints that there's a chance the third princess from Clearwater Port might be the one pulling the strings. She suspects Princess Garcia Wimbledon might be holding Tyre's family hostage, using her as a pawn to eliminate our hero. Judging by how Tyre chose to end things, it seems she was trained for years before being assigned here. The boy feels deeply disappointed that his own siblings are so quick to eliminate each other for the crown. Suddenly, the woman leans in close to our hero's ear and whispers that she has to go because someone is coming their way. The boy blushes a bit, maybe catching a peek of her assets straining against her shirt, before she disappears into thin air. Just then, the old consul shows up with some good news. A bunch of folks have volunteered to take on the demons during the demon months. This puts a big grin on the prince's face, and he decides he needs to go see it all for himself. But before heading there, the old man genuinely asks if he really intends to have these regular folks go up against the demons. Once outside, our hero also feels bummed out and sees that the consultant's worries were legit. These people don't look like fighters. They seem more like street thugs. On the other hand, the knight is all gung-ho about how he picked these folks based on what our hero wanted. But looking at these poor souls with their frail bodies, it's clear this knight totally missed the mark. The prince just facepalms himself, and it seems like our hero expected a lot from people who barely scrape by. Even the consultant suggests considering other recruits instead of these commoners. But our hero seems dead set on using them anyway, as if he has cracked the code already. Our hero believes that it's all about people power when it comes to building a strong army, whether they're wielding medieval swords or modern tech. The knight suggests starting sword training tomorrow, but our hero waves it off. Instead, he tells the knight to group them up, then hits the jogging trail. He also tells him to bring that iron axe hunter from earlier in tow, and suggests the knight to sit tight and enjoy the show. By noon, the hunters joined our hero's cause. But the knight's not exactly thrilled with this new training approach. Coming from a family steeped in warrior tradition, he doesn't get why these folks are getting rewarded with eggs just for standing around all morning, especially since eggs are pricey as hell. Once again, our hero tells him to chill and enjoy the show. Like, he already knows you can't whip up a top-notch army in a few medieval months, and he is not after muscle-bound brutes who can tear enemies apart with their bare hands. All he wants is disciplined soldiers. To get results fast, he's using military techniques he learned back in college. He's seen how quickly people can unify under this method, and he is betting these folks will follow suit. After a while, the carriages show up and folks eagerly line up for their eggs. People still can't quite wrap their heads around the idea of eggs as rewards. The knight clangs his plate loudly to get everyone's attention and orders them to form 4 lines. He lays down the law that food will be handed out in order, and stragglers would wait till the end. There's a mix of nerves and compliance as everyone queues up. Meanwhile, the knight is still puzzled why the prince is bothering to teach these kinds of basic things to these people. Suddenly, the crowd erupts into murmurs and talks, chanting Iron Axe, who seems to have quite the reputation around these parts. The prince declares a break after lunch, followed by a visit to the guard barracks in town. Iron Axe is appointed as their captain, tasked with teaching everyone how to set up tents. As soon as our hero finishes speaking, there's a buzz of gossip about the prince putting someone like Iron Axe in charge of their platoon. To calm everyone down, he reminds them that Iron Axe isn't local, just like the witches that do not belong to Grey Castle. Our hero stresses that in Border Town, everyone's treated equally, no matter where they're from. As long as they're not criminals, they're welcome here. The prince unrolls a ridiculously long sheet, longer than your average grocery list, and tells the chief knight to pay more attention to these rules than to who gets to be captain. He stresses that everyone needs to memorize and stick to these rules if they want their usual egg during meals. The chief knight scratches his head at the idea of visiting Teacher Carl after dinner, wondering aloud how reading and writing will help fight demons. But the prince brushes off his concerns and says a well-educated army is always more effective. According to him, history has proven this point many times. Next up, we're at City Hall in Bordertown. There we see our hero stagger out of his room, still half asleep. Suddenly, Nightingale pops up out of nowhere and teases him about his newfound habit of sleeping a lot lately. It seems she has also helped herself by eating some of our hero's breakfast. Of course, the boy does not seem to be really happy to see her eating his breakfast and coming inside without his permission. He then starts wondering aloud if she was never taught to be more subtle around royalty. As he takes his seat, the lady adopts a respectful posture and asks if she's being polite enough. Then she casually mentions she knows the prince isn't into all that fancy, unnecessary politeness. The boy finds himself startled to see that she seems to know what he exactly prefers. He sighs and tells her to just eat the whole breakfast so he can at least ask for another serving. She dives into the food while the prince starts flipping through his new blueprints. The lady then curiously asks why he's been ordering so much ice-ons lately, because it's already dead of the winter, and if our hero wants to make his whiskey cool, he can simply put his drink outside. Seeing his wide-open order book, Prince Ronald realizes that she must have seen everything he has been ordering lately. So, he spills the beans that he's trying to make cheese, and to do that, he needs things to stay below freezing. While the girl praises our hero for his clever ideas, inside our hero's mind, we discover he just fed her a lie about making cheese, because he is making something even more confidential, which he does not want to disclose to her, because he doesn't fully trust her like he does with Anna and Nana. He wants to gather more intel about her before revealing his true secrets. He is apparently focused on developing guns, which are easier to make than steam engines. He fears that if anyone discovers his methods, it could seriously derail his ambitious plans. Also, the ice-ons he ordered is basically known as saltpeter, a substance wealthy folks use to cool drinks in summer. And this name, ice-ons, is just a fancy name given by the nobles. But what's crucial is that saltpeter is a key ingredient in making gunpowder, adding another layer of secrecy to his activities. The boy then changes the conversation by asking if witches train assassins as well, aside from searching for the Holy Mountain. The lady mentions that they're a group of oddballs who came together because of their dream of finding the Holy Mountain, and she only joined the Witch Cooperation Association about 2 years ago. Hearing this, the boy asks if she worked for someone else before joining the association, and wonders if there are people who accept witches. Putting down her plate, the lady laughs at the idea, calling it ridiculous. Sadly, she reveals that if her previous owner had known she had become a witch, he wouldn't have let her through the front door. Furthermore, she admits that if she hadn't been useful to him later on, he would have disposed of her quietly and quickly. The boy becomes more curious and demands further explanation about her past, but the lady decides to stay silent, promising a detailed account when the time is right. She also reassures him not to sweat it, mentioning she's been free for the last 5 years and has no plans to be anyone's pawn. The boy stays quiet, looking kinda down, and 5 days breeze by since that chat. Out in the courtyard, we see our hero has finally finished his first gun after tackling loads of production hiccups, and he is thrilled to keep this beauty all to himself. One big reason he's been working on steam engines was to churn out guns in bulk, so he had to nail a prototype first before ramping up production. But at this rate, he worries he'll only crank out 4 of these bad boys by the month of demons. Meanwhile, the knight's scratching his head over how these supposed muskets will help in fighting demons. The boy just tells him to round up the village's top hunters and form a killer squad to wield these weapons. But the prince finds himself completely creeped out when the knight suggests using patrol guards instead of hunters. Well, looking back at those soldiers, it seems our hero's reluctance to entrust these guns to these puny frail patrol guards is indeed justifiable. In the dark tunnels beneath Roland Castle, a few soldiers are marching through the tunnels. Suddenly, one of them leaps into the air and attacks another soldier. The scar-faced soldier tells this thin mustache to surrender or face the same fate as his friend Greymutt. As the thin mustache soldier recalls his fallen friend, he becomes even more riled up, vowing never to let these hooligans set foot in the castle. With a surge of strength, he flings the scar-faced man back, causing his sword to fly off. Thin Mustache then readies his own sword and thrusts it into the left shoulder of Scarface, declaring that, "This is for Greymutt." As he bleeds, Scarface scoffs, amazed that an ordinary guard patrol like the Thin Mustache soldier could hurt him. The Thin Mustache gets annoyed upon hearing this, and makes it abundantly clear that while Scarface was wasting time gambling and sleeping in pubs, he and his friends were training every day to protect their hometown. He swears he won't let Longsong and his partners disrupt their village's peace. As the Thin Mustache leaps to finish off his opponent, another cocky guy joins the fray and stabs him right in the chest. The poor guy writhes in pain from the dagger wound and collapses to the ground. Meanwhile, the other intruders stand over him confidently. Surprisingly, the Thin Mustache manages to pull the dagger out of his chest, despite the agony, and in a swift move, he throws it toward a nearby torch. The dagger shatters the torch, extinguishing the flame and plunging the area into darkness. Up in the castle's food storage, the thin mustache hides himself in one of the bins. He's certain these infiltrators are here to attack the food supplies. If they succeed in spoiling all the food, the border town will have no choice but to evacuate to Longsong Fortress. The soldier starts feeling disappointed in himself for not being able to protect a vital food bank while their prince is busting his butt for this town's progress. All of a sudden, his face goes terrified as the door behind him swings open, revealing those rowdy soldiers once again. One of the intruders grabs the soldier by the collar and throws him to the ground, telling him to quit running and surrender to Duke Ryan's demands. In case you forgot who Duke Ryan is, he's that white-haired guy who doesn't want our hero anywhere near his territory. The soldier stands his ground despite the threat, boldly stating that his prince will definitely foil Duke Ryan's plans. The intruders just scoff at the idea, laughing off the prince's abilities. Then, the leader tells his lackeys to take out the soldier and mess up the food while they're at it. Without hesitation, a lackey smacks the thin mustache guy hard on the head. Before losing his consciousness, the poor soldier wonders if this is how he will meet his end. But it seems fate has other plans, as Nightingale suddenly arrives on the scene. She questions the intruders if they're enjoying themselves in someone else's territory, but warns them their party is about to get shut down real quick. The intruders demand to know who she thinks she is. Nightingale coolly replies she's just a local from the border town. She questions why these clowns are here and suggests they look like sewer rats creeping out of the drains. Looks like those intruders do not realize how deep in shit they are, and their leader tells his crew to just take down this mysterious lady. But she just smiles, and in a flash, she swings her hand, and suddenly bodies are hitting the floor. Our soldier watches with bleary eyes as this mystery person swiftly takes out the intruders. Before he can even figure out who she is, he drifts off into unconsciousness. The next day rolls around, and we find the intruders' bodies scattered in the food storage. The knight inspecting the scene is scratching his head. He's trying to piece together who could have taken out these guys. He knows the thin mustache guy couldn't have done it with his injuries. The most likely scenario is some outsider jumped in without needing any backup. Their moves were so slick, the enemies didn't stand a chance. And there's no mess left behind. No blood or barrels knocked over. Not even a scratch in the place. Suddenly, he's thinking there must be someone with serious sword skills around. He starts feeling proud of his clan's history and their knack for knightly arts. The soldier gives his report. The autopsies are done, and they've identified the corpses. 8 were from our town's guard, and 1's still a mystery. The chief knight asks about the survivors. The soldier says Captain Brian's getting special healing, but Scarface got tossed in the dungeon and locked up. The knight tells the soldier to wake Scarface pronto for interrogation. Meanwhile, the prince feels annoyed that he hasn't made any real progress yet, and these guys are already trying to bring him down. But he's thankful Nightingale swooped in and saved the day. Nightingale reassures him that those intruders couldn't have gotten to him anyway, with Anna sleeping right under his floor. That's when the prince gets an idea. He proposes that Nightingale become his secret bodyguard, offering her a gig that pays better than Anna's. A sweet place to live with a garden, 2 days off each week, and paid vacations. But even with all those tempting perks, she politely turns down his offer, explaining she can't leave the association and her friends there. The prince suggests bringing everyone to town since there's plenty of space after the construction. He assures her there won't be any discrimination, and they can live freely. Once again, she declines, saying she'll think about it in the future, leaving the prince feeling a bit awkward after being turned down. Moving on, the boy asks if she safely sent Nana back home after healing the soldiers. She confirms she did, mentioning Nana was scared when she saw the injured soldiers. But that's not surprising. Given her experience is mostly patching up chickens, healing a person covered in wounds was understandably terrifying for her. Returning to the conversation, the boy asks her if she has figured out which of his siblings might be behind this infiltration. The lady points out that this time it wasn't one of his siblings behind the infiltration. The culprits bribed the patrol guards of the border town. Their plan was so sloppy they left 2 witnesses alive who didn't even have the guts to kill themselves before getting caught. She assures him they'll figure it out soon, since the chief knight is already grilling one of the infiltrators. She also mentions these guys were surprisingly wimpy and tearful compared to the 3rd princess's infiltrator. While everything is peaceful outside the castle, we see our hero strolls alongside the chief knight, heading to visit the thin mustache soldier. When the soldier spots the prince in the room, he's totally thrown and jumps in his bed. The prince starts off by praising Brian for his guts and the fight he put up. But Brian gets emotional, saying it was his buddy who really stepped up, the true hero who sacrificed his life. But the prince reassures the soldier, saying his friend's funeral will give him the recognition he deserves for his bravery. As for Scarface, he's getting the full punishment. He's set to hang in 3 days, and the prince hopes Brian will be well enough to see it happen. Thin Mustache then mentions Scarface supposedly has noble blood, hinting it might stir up trouble with Longsong Fortress. The prince brushes it off, explaining Scarface might have noble lineage from the Elk family, but he's got no titles or land. Besides, he tried to burn down all of Bordertown's food, causing a huge mess that can't just be ignored. With reassurances that someone else will handle patrols, the prince tells Thin Mustache to rest up. In the coming month of demons, he promises to honor him as a brave knight of the prince. Next, we're up on the city wall where the new recruits are getting trained hard by Hunter Iron Axe. Iron Axe suddenly grabs everyone's attention, and they snap to attention because the prince is here for an inspection. But it seems our prince has no clue what he's supposed to say during this inspection. He awkwardly starts walking up to a random soldier and decides to ask about their daily routine. With a friendly smile, he asks the soldier how he feels about the training and if he's been eating well lately. The soldier looks really nervous in front of the prince, while our prince seems to be copying something he saw on TV once. Out of nowhere, the soldier drops down to his knees, leaving the prince totally puzzled and kinda weirded out, wondering if he's missed something. Meanwhile, the soldier's got tears in his eyes. Not just him, but everyone's really moved that the prince came to check on them personally. The boy reaches out and tells the soldier to get back on his feet. It looks like all those good meals our hero fed them have really perked up the soldiers. Then the prince reminds everyone they can speak up if they have suggestions or complaints, and promises to make sure everyone gets enough to eat. Out of the blue, that shy kid from earlier pipes up. He says there aren't enough soldiers in their civilian army, and with the way they're training, he's worried they won't stand a chance against the demons when they attack. Whispers and murmurs start buzzing around, everyone thinking the same thing, and wonders if the prince plans to hire mercenaries to fight off demons. But our hero cuts them off with a hand gesture, and with a big grin, he asks the soldier for his name. The soldier Vanner replies nervously. Our hero gives Vanner props for his sharp eye, and agrees that relying solely on a civilian army to defend the entire wall doesn't not make any sense. However, he points out that demons are just mutated animals and beasts, not as smart as humans, and Iron Axe has proven this by taking on those monsters directly. Iron Axe nods in agreement, saying those creatures are exactly as the prince described, but he admits hybrids are a whole different ballgame, posing a tougher challenge altogether. The prince comes up with this idea to strategically place fences, ditches, and hills to guide the dumb beasts into traps they set up. He figures it'll work since these creatures are pretty simple-minded. Iron Axe still seems worried about getting too close to these beasts. He says spears and bows won't cut it against them if push comes to shove. Our hero smirks and agrees, knowing traditional weapons won't do the trick. That's why he's cooked up these new weapons that are more dependable than a whole squad of armored knights. The crowd's buzzing to see these new toys. We're out on the testing grounds, and suddenly there's this massive explosion that rattles the whole place. Our hero's over the moon that his gunpowder invention worked like a charm, but the others are just freaking out. Iron Axe even mutters something about this explosion being God's wrath. The explosion blows a big hole in the ground and even takes out the test rabbits in the process. The prince tells everyone to get up close and examine everything to gather test data. Our hero is pumped that they can create such a powerful weapon just by mixing a bunch of elements in the right ratio. With everything wiped out by the blast, the hunter suggests they wouldn't have to worry about monsters if they had this bad boy doing its job. But the prince reminds them they won't have enough gunpowder before the month of demons. Still, he's excited they can work around it, relying mainly on guns and crossbows, while keeping the gunpowder as their trump cards. In the next scene, Nightingale paints how the world looks to her, just black and white, with no clear boundaries. She navigates through paths that defy normal limits by shifting her perspective. Up, down, left, and right aren't fixed. They collide, break away, or overlap. Moving along these ever-shifting lines gives her a bird's-eye view, letting her swing through anything. Other than the black and white, she can also see some other colors as well. For example, witches are the essence of magic, and she can sense the magic flowing and fading within their bodies. In this world, only witches hold something truly amazing, and Anna's magic stands out with its vibrant, rich colors. Suddenly, Anna calls her out, and Nightingale appears back in the real world. When Anna asks what Nightingale was doing here, Nightingale smoothly changes the subject, mentioning she brought some fish cakes. Anna's face lights up with delight at the sight of these treats, but Nightingale hesitates, saying she needs to wash her hands first. Instead of water, Anna just uses her fiery powers to cleanse her hands, which impresses the women big time. That is when it hits Nightingale that Anna is the only witch in their group with such incredible powers. This realization fills her with both dread and sadness, knowing that such strong abilities come with risks. With the month of demons approaching, she worries about Anna enduring unimaginable pain during her puberty. Nightingale gently suggests that Anna should join the association, where other witches can support her. She assures Anna that everyone would be thrilled to have someone as powerful as her among them. But then Nightingale's tone turns serious as she admits to Anna that she might not make it through this winter. Anna then asks Nightingale where she lived before joining the association. Nightingale replies that she used to live in a big city to the east, not too far from the capital. Anna then follows up by asking if Nightingale was happy back then. Nightingale's mind immediately flashes back to her past, recalling herself feeling miserable, locked up with shackles and a power-suppressing locket. Instead of answering directly, Nightingale turns the question around and asks Anna why she wants to know. Anna opens up, sharing that she had a tough life in the slums of Border Town. Her father sold her to the church for 25 golden coins, and it was our hero who freed her from those chains. Now Anna feels genuinely happy to be where she is. Nightingale gently reminds Anna that leaving the castle isn't an option due to how witches are hated by others, but Anna remains optimistic, trusting the prince to change things for them. Suddenly, their chat gets cut off when Nana storms in, slamming the doors before her. She's in tears and rushes to hug Anna, blurting out that things are about to hit the fan for her. Meanwhile, our hero is deep in slumber, dreaming of heroic exploits, and that is when Nightingale rudely wakes him up. She's absolutely livid, informing the sleepyhead that Nana's father is on his way and suspects she's a witch. Shocked to hear Nana's secret is out, the prince rushes into action, hoping he now has a shot to keep Nana in the castle. He wonders how the nobleman will react when he finds out his daughter is a witch. Will he plead with the prince to let her stay and keep her secret? When our hero finally steps outside, reality is far from what he was imagining. Nana's dad is fuming, demanding the immediate return of his daughter. After they settle into their seats, Nana's restless father calls her over to him. The little girl gets scared and asks if he's planning to sell her to the church. The man gets all chummy, saying the church would never take someone as clueless as her, so she better return back to her father. But our hero steps in, reminding him that his daughter is a witch. The man flat out refuses to believe it, and even when Nana herself confirms that she is a witch, the father gets really mad and suggests maybe Teacher Carl is just labeling another girl as a witch. That's when our hero gives Anna a nod, signaling her to show off her fiery magic powers. She does it right away, leaving the old man stunned to see witchcraft in action. Our hero tells him to calm down and assures him they can explain everything. Eventually, the father starts to understand that his daughter is just here to practice her witch powers after all. But our hero feels creeped out by the implication that her father was thinking of him as a pedophile for calling little girls into the castle. The boy then gets down to business, pointing out that Nana has healing abilities that could be invaluable in Border Town during the months of demons, to aid in healing the injured. However, the dawning father, Mr. Pine, politely declines, concerned for his daughter's safety if she stays here. Our hero reveals that opportunities often come with dangers, mentioning that from what he's heard, Nana's grandfather and Mr. Pine's father were courageous knights. The Pine family's noble lineage comes from their grandfather's heroic deeds. Mr. Pine agrees, and proudly recalls how his father once faced down an incredibly powerful demon and actually defeated it. He even has the demon's massive horn hanging over his fireplace to prove it. But then our hero points out how the Pine family is not as prestigious as it was before. Pine family is just a working-class citizens now, to which the father sadly admits. He then notices Pine's rough, calloused hands, proof that Mr. Pine hasn't given up on his warrior spirit and still trains daily to sharpen his sword skills. So, he cleverly suggests that Pine join in defending the border, promising to grant him enough land to become a true noble. Despite this tempting offer, Pine isn't willing to take the risk and prefers to send Nana to Longsong Fortress rather than see her in harm's way. Our hero reminds him that Longsong Fortress isn't as safe as Border Town. The church has eyes and ears everywhere there. If the truth about Nana gets out, not even he could protect her. He promises to prepare a small boat for a quick retreat to Longsong in case of trouble, ensuring Nana and Anna's safety. Finally, the old man puts his faith in the prince, nodding respectfully and pledging his loyalty to fight for our hero's cause. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief and smiles, but Anna pouts, showing her anger toward our hero for even considering sending her away. She makes it crystal clear that she's not going anywhere. The next day, the old constable shows up looking really worried that they've blown all their money on weapons and army training. He's fretting that if things keep going like this for a few more months, everyone's going to starve for sure. The boy facepalms himself and gives him permission to use his savings for their budget. The old man agrees but grumbles it won't solve their long-term problems. Our hero shrugs and says if the defenses fail, they'll evacuate the town as soon as possible, then sends the old man off to do as he's told. Once the constable's gone, the boy feels pretty crushed after draining every last penny he'd saved up, and if the border defenses still fail, he's screwed. Then, his mood perks up when Nightingale shows up again. The woman immediately points out that he had lied to the old man about leaving the town. The prince immediately admits his lie, because he does not want to spread distress among the already terrified townspeople. Nightingale advises him to spend his time with Anna, instead of stressing over politics. She shares her fear that Anna might not be around much longer, but the boy insists she will survive, because she has promised to beat those demons at all costs. Nightingale wonders how he can trust a witch cursed by demons. The boy just shrugs and says he believes in her, and further points out that he also trusts Nightingale as well. The woman just stares at our hero's poker face and realizes he's not lying. He casually points out that he doesn't lie without a good reason. Suddenly, they hear a commotion outside. Nightingale glances out the window and gets visibly anxious, noting that it's snowing. Winter has arrived. The boy decides to check on Hunter Ironaxe and his progress. At the shooting range, Ironaxe is using the guns and hitting bullseye after bullseye. The prince shows up and asks about the training. Ironaxe lights up like a kid, enthusiastically mentioning that he's nailed all the basics he was taught. The prince isn't surprised, because being a warrior through and through, Ironaxe has been able to master any weapon given to him. The man praises this iron pipe of the gods for its insane power. He grits his teeth, saying if he had this pipe when he fought that hybrid monster, it wouldn't have stood a chance. Ironaxe drops to his knees, overwhelmed that the prince entrusted such devastating power to a humble hunter like him, and promises not to let his prince down. The prince then checks in with his chief knight, Carter, asking how things are going. The knight looks a bit serious and mentions they could really use more than just the 2 guns they have. Our hero gets it and assures him that 2 more guns are already in the works and should be ready soon. He admits they rushed the gunpowder development because the months of demons are finally here. I'm starting to feel like this comic is turning into a manhwa version of Game of Thrones. Anyway, once he climbs up the city wall, the soldiers greet the prince right away. Seeing them bow their heads makes our hero feel sheepish, wishing he had taught them some proper military etiquette. The hunter points out that there aren't many demons after the first snow, but our hero tells him to stay cautious regardless. Suddenly they catch a sight of something, and there they see a demon in a distance. The soldiers start to panic, and one of them even asks if they should sound the alarm. Our hero tells the soldier to decide for himself, since he has more experience after their training. Finally, the soldier decides not to sound the alarm and puts his bow down. Our hero is relieved to see that his training of these soldiers is paying off, because dealing with the presence of the demon should be handled with caution instead of acting on impulses. The beast starts walking toward the wall, picking up momentum. The prince squints his eyes and gazes closely, wondering if it's a mutated fox. The hunter agrees, pointing out that the animal has recently been possessed, so it's not that threatening. The wolf gears up to jump over the wall, and the hunter quickly gets ready for the attack. Chief Knight Carter steps forward, shielding the prince. Just as the beast lunges at them, the hunter lets loose an arrow that flies through the air and instantly brings down the beast. The prince peers down to see the creature lying dead on the ground. The knight lets out a sigh of relief that they avoided a close encounter. Meanwhile, our hero notices the strange black blood and can't help but wonder why it's like that. He's also puzzled about why witches can snap out of demonic influence, but these animals can't. Curiously, the boy asks if someone bitten by a demon could turn into a mindless ghoul. The hunter immediately dismisses the idea, saying there's no such thing as ghouls. Our hero breathes a sigh of relief, glad he won't have to deal with a zombie apocalypse. He then asks if the meat is edible. The knight started to freak out upon hearing this, and questions why the prince would consider eating cursed meat. The hunter agreed, recalling how he once fed a chunk of demon flesh to hunting dogs, which led to their deaths immediately. The boy sighs in disappointment, thinking it's a total waste of good meat. Both the knight and hunter are shocked that the prince was actually considering eating it. But our hero immediately reminds them how scarce food has gotten, and it would have been great if they were able to chow down on the meat they were about to hunt down. Suddenly, a soldier barges in, blurting out that someone's hurt. Apparently, it's not one of the regular guards, but a worker from the northern mines. Next thing you know, Nana's sitting alone when Nightingale suddenly pops up, asking if she's bored. The little girl jumps a mile after getting scared out of her wits, and the woman quickly apologizes for scaring her like that. Nightingale then mentions that Anna's still busy working, and might be back soon. Nana asks if Anna's still tackling those dirty mounds, and Nightingale nods in agreement. Nightingale then sits down on the chair and grabs Anna's tea out of habit without her permission. It seems Nana is feeling a bit down because of her new job. The prince has assigned her to heal the wounded guards. It's not that she's unwilling to do the job, but seeing the injured soldiers traumatizes her. She wants to overcome her fear to keep using her abilities effectively, and wishes she were as courageous as Anna. Suddenly, Nightingale spots someone coming, and a soldier bursts in with urgency, telling Nana to come downstairs pronto, because there's a badly hurt patient who needs her help. Down in the infirmary, the injured man screams in agony, begging his prince to relieve his excruciating pain. Seeing the soldier there, desperate for his life, makes our hero anxious as he wonders if this man's burns are from the steam engine malfunction in the northern mines. Nana arrives at the scene, trembling in fear as she approaches the burned miner. Her father gives her a reassuring pat on the head. Nana gulps down her fears, calming herself immediately, and declares that she's ready to proceed. Once the curtains are drawn around her, she takes a deep breath, summons her magical ability, and begins healing the man. Shortly after, the injured man is completely healed, looking as fresh as a freshly picked cucumber. Meanwhile, The father is really amazed and proud of her little girl after witnessing her healing abilities for the first time, and calls it nothing short of a miracle. Knight Brian happily mentions it's all thanks to Nana that he's also back from the brink of death. The prince freaks out upon hearing this and quickly tells Brian to keep it down. He reminds him that when Nana healed him, she snuck out without her dad knowing, and he doesn't want to deal with her angry father. Now that the injured man is awake and fully healed, he can't believe he's actually alive. Prince Roland assures him it's real, and proudly reveals that Nana, who is one of the witches, saved his life. Later that night, when our hero gets back to his room, Nightingale greets him and asks why he had to spill Nana's secret so early. And that's when we flash back to the moment when the miner is shocked after learning about Nana's true identity. He starts freaking out and reminds everyone about witches being devils. But her dad got annoyed real quick and set him straight that his daughter wasn't involved with any devils, and she was the one who saved his life. Out of nowhere, the miner sits up and drops to his knees in front of the little girl, apologizing big time for his earlier words and thanking her deeply for saving his life. Back in the present moment, our hero reflects that it was the perfect time to reveal her as a witch, considering how well it all played out. Plus, if they're going to use her powers against demons in the coming months, hiding her identity as a witch wouldn't have been an option anyway. He also stresses that since the church folks have already left for Longsong Fortress, there is no one to bully his girls. The lady asks him if he had already planned everything from the start. The boy immediately agrees, saying the snow has blocked the roads to the fortress and the seaports are under his control. The church has no means of learning what is going on in Border Town, let alone taking direct action against witches. This gives him a sweet 3 months to change public opinion about witches being the reincarnation of evil. He points out how Nana is now seen as an angel instead of a villain in the eyes of the soldiers she has recently healed. They can continue using her power to heal everyone, which will help boost everyone's morale. Once they remove prejudice from the civilians' minds, everyone will be happy. Nightingale has no clue what our hero is trying to achieve by all this, so she asks him why he is doing so much for the witches. Our hero reminds her once again that his border town does not discriminate by origin, and someone as loathed as witches should live on this land like every other person. The woman's eyes widen hearing our hero's big plans, and it's clear she's got something important to get off her chest. She admits she wasn't straight with our hero before. The prince is taken aback by this revelation, and the woman starts explaining how her sisters in the association have been moving around for ages, losing hope along the way. All they want now is a safe place to be happy, even if it's just a castle. At first the boy is confused by her confession, but then he's stunned to realize she's actually open to bringing all the witches to the border town. But she quickly brings him back down to earth, warning him that if witches come to the castle, he'll be facing off with the church. The boy reassures her, saying the church's main headquarters is far away. Even if they find out about witches leaving the border town, they won't march all the way to Grey Castle just for him. He's already plotting to gather enough influence to rival the church and create a world where witches can live alongside regular folks. He dreams of expanding that world to Grey Castle, or maybe even the whole kingdom. The next scene takes us to the capital of Grey Castle. There, soldiers on their horses are marching down the road when their captain suddenly yells for everyone to stop. This person looks really pumped as they finally return to the castle. The folks inside the castle light up the sky with fireworks, welcoming the man about to enter the city once again, Gerald Wimbledon, the first prince of Grey Castle. It's hilarious to see that these suckers have explosive material to make fireworks, even though it's been only a few chapters since our hero invented gunpowder in this primitive society. Anyway, the gates come down and Prince Gerald heads into the city with his crew. Once inside, he gets straight to the point and tells everyone he's here to claim what's rightfully his from his father. 3 shady characters show up, bowing before their prince and reporting that they've already done what they were tasked with. Prince Gerald then asks if they've managed to switch out the royal guards of the king as planned. The lackey admits there's been a snag in the plan due to some issues, and they've only been able to replace the guards in the king's chamber. The man waves off the concern, saying as long as he and his crew can get into the castle, they're good. The lackey quickly reassures him that there won't be anyone stopping their entry. The old man then mentions that Prince Gerald's fate star, the Heaven Star, is leaving the equinox and will be gone from this hemisphere in about 4 months. He asks if Gerald remembers what that star activity symbolizes. Gerald's mind drifts back to childhood memories of playing with his younger siblings. Then, he snaps back to reality and admits he already knows what those stars mean. This means he's ready to break the rules of the challenge their father set for them, and Prince Gerald will be taking the throne of Grey Castle. Outside the king's room, the prince catches a weird odor and asks his lackey about the strange smell of blood. The old guy explains that the king had called for a servant girl who noticed the staff change when she left, so they had to get rid of her. Seems like things are getting interesting because the king hasn't been around women since their mother passed away. As he's about to enter, the old man points out there's no guard patrol, making it easier to move around. The prince scoffs that he's not sneaking in like a rat. He's here proudly to discuss inheriting the throne with his father. But if talking fails, he'll try something else. He grips his sword and leans toward the door. The scent of blood just gets stronger. Once he takes a peek inside, he finds blood and smashes through the door. Inside, he discovers his brother standing there, and the third king of Grey Castle, Wimbledon, lies dead with a dagger in his chest. The assassin behind this is Timothy Wimbledon, the second prince of Grey Castle. Seeing his older brother, Timothy claims he didn't want to do it, but had no choice. Just like the first prince had no choice other than to come here. Almost instantly, a bunch of soldiers pop up right behind the first prince and surround him, catching him off guard. The older brother asks his younger sibling how long he'd been planning this. Timothy explains that the decree their father set was like a chess game. He admits he planned to play by the rules, but the third princess started playing dirty. He also points out Gerald as a dirty player, suggesting the first prince wouldn't have rushed all the way across the kingdom to the capital without a heads up from his astrologer lackey. Seems like his lackey has also betrayed the first prince, though the old man clarifies he never lied. When the heavens move from the equinox, it symbolizes a seeker who's lost their way, but also foretells downfall. The first prince gets annoyed and yells at his younger brother, reminding him how he was the favorite son, given all the advantages by the king. Yet he killed their father. In response, Timothy grins shamelessly, pointing out the first prince's hypocrisy, since he was also there to kill the king if talking didn't work out. The first prince trembles, probably after seeing his brother dropping truth bombs so brutally. He asks Timothy if he intentionally lured him here to get rid of him as well. Timothy just shrugs, saying he didn't plan to confront their sister just by staying put to kill his older brother. He's kinda impressed their sister also saw all this coming before the decree was even written. Timothy goes on to explain he wants to end this royal decree early because his Valencia city isn't like their sister's Clearwater port, which is breeding warriors like rabbits. He needs an army, a big enough one to challenge her sister, and that's only possible if he's rocking the Grey Castle crown. The first prince gets furious and charges at his brother, but the soldiers quickly intervene. One of them strikes him from behind with a spear, forcing him to drop to his knees in front of his younger brother. Timothy devilishly informs his brother that he'll be framed for killing the king and labeled a murderer, and he will face the guillotine for his crime as well. The soldier pins the first prince down, but he keeps protesting, asking if Timothy even has the right to judge him, and vows to expose Timothy's crimes to everyone in public. But Timothy has covered all his bases. He's prepared a potion called the Silencer. Once someone drinks it, they won't be able to utter a word. After executing his brother, Timothy plans to play the grieving role perfectly. With no one else in line for the throne, he'll become king without breaking a sweat. He further tells his brother to curse his sister for the terrible fate he's about to face, while the first prince's mind flashes back to a memory once again, and the soldiers start dragging Gerald out of the place. The cunning fox who betrayed the first prince starts calling Timothy king, declaring that the crown is already his. Timothy gives the man a verbal high five for a job well done, but then he pulls out a presumably poisonous pill and tells the man to swallow it if he doesn't want to be betrayed later. Timothy looks at his father, gritting his teeth in frustration at seeing him dead before his eyes. The scene flashes back to the past when Timothy reported to the king that Gerald was on his way to the capital with intentions to forcibly take the crown. Timothy asked if the king had a plan to prevent this. The king just grinned manically, leaving the boy confused. In the next moment, the king pulled out a dagger, swung with all his force, and thrust it into his own chest, dying immediately before Timothy's eyes. Right in the middle of things, Timothy is pissed off, trying to figure out who's stirring up trouble in the fight for the crown. He's dead set on finding that bastard and showing them what happens when you mess with royalty. Looks like the women who visited the king earlier must be involved in this mess. In any case, we're back at the border town castle where everything's been pretty smooth lately. The steam engine prototype in the mines got fixed up, no accidents, and demons haven't been causing trouble either. Our hero's been chilling out, brainstorming how to boost the town's economy and fill up his empty wallet back again. But then, bam! His peaceful moment gets crashed by the knight barging in with bad news. A massive horde of demons is swarming outside the walls. Down at the border, below the wall, a bunch of monsters are howling their heads off. Up above, the soldiers look freaked out at the sheer numbers. And let's not forget Vonner. He was just a regular miner who ended up joining the army just to eat damn eggs. One of the beasts charges at the wall and directly hits HTE wall, leaving the entire wall shaking. And that also did quite a damage to the wall, but the monster immediately falls to the ground and the wolf-type monster starts marching down. Hunter Iron Ace quickly tells everyone to gear up their spears. As soon as the wolves are right on top of them, the terrified Vanner gathers his guts and stabs those beasts at the captain's command. One of the wolves manages to climb up, but the captain swiftly whips out his gun and blows the monster's brains out. With the immediate threat dealt with, Iron Ace tells everyone to stay focused and keep an eye on what's ahead. Suddenly, a soldier screams as they're attacked, their belly pierced deeply. Seeing their guts spill out terrifies Vanner to his core. The knight and the prince finally arrive at the scene. The knight tells Vanner to chill out and remember his training. Once the soldier regains composure, he snaps back to his senses and orders the others to take the injured soldier to the hospital while everyone else holds their ground and fights off the demons beneath the wall. The prince can't help but smile at the sight of Vanner showing such discipline. He's glad that all that egg-eating didn't go to waste in training the civilian army after all. Suddenly, something catches their eye on the ground, something so freaky that even our hero starts to freak out. The hunter, equally spooked, quickly pulls out his gun, saying they've officially stumbled onto trouble for the day. Our hero's mind is spinning at the sight of this behemoth, a disgusting creature that seems to break all the rules of biology. He never thought he'd come face to face with such a mutant monster. The soldiers rain arrows down on the behemoth, but it's like shooting toothpicks at a tank. The arrows just bounce off its thick, mountain-like shield. They look to their leader, asking what the heck they should do next. Meanwhile, the monster keeps stomping along, each step rattling the whole dang ground. Realizing they need more firepower, our hero tells his crew to get their muskets ready. When the monster gets close enough, they start blasting away, but it's about as effective as trying to stop a T-Rex with a water gun. The soldiers start freaking out when even the muskets can't do squat against this monster. The prince quickly tells them to chill and orders Vice Captain Vanner to round up some guys and grab dynamite from storage. After dishing out orders, he tries to get everyone to listen, but bam! The giant behemoth demolishes the wall they busted their butts to build. At this point, the prince is pretty darn sure they're screwed. He didn't figure the monster would be this tough and calls for an immediate retreat before shit goes down real bad. As the wall crumbles, Nightingale swoops in and saves our hero from a nasty fall. Once they're back on solid ground, the boy asks her what she's doing there. She explains she came because she was worried, and now it looks like her worries were on point. She asks our hero how he plans to handle the monster. He assures her he's still got a trick up his sleeve, and right on cue, Vanner strolls back with dynamite in hand. Our hero jumps in, shouting at Vanner to light the fuse and chuck the dynamite under the monster's legs. Meanwhile, poor Vanner's freaking out in this life-or-death situation. Finally, he gets the fuse lit, plops the dynamite down, and bolts out of there while the fuse starts sizzling. Once that fuse burns down, boom! The whole place shakes with a massive explosion, hitting the monster square in the gut. Everyone starts busting out victory moves as they watch the monster crash lifelessly to the ground. The prince is grinning like he just aced a test. But their celebration is cut short when they spot more beasts roaring back at them, even though they're just regular old critters. But they are in numbers. The soldiers scramble to get their shields up, and our hero is standing there clueless and panicking. The boar suddenly lets out a roar and charges right at their group. One soldier, lying on the ground, can't believe his eyes as he sees this girl stepping into the fray. But this ain't just any girl, it's Anna, and she's no ordinary lady, and you better get that to your head. Anna stares down the monster, showing no fear. She taps into her powers and throws fire right at the boar. The flames hit the mark, roasting the boar alive. Our hero's jaw drops, totally caught off guard by what he's seeing. Our hero feels like a complete idiot for never thinking about Anna's role on the battlefield beyond her building and town projects. That's exactly why he kept her safe in the sickbay, to avoid any danger, and he has no clue how she got out of here. As one of Knight Brian drops down to his knees, he informs the prince that Miss Anna was worried about his safety and insisted on coming to the wall, and he was not able to stop her. Originally, our hero had planned to sway public opinion in favor of witches using Nana's abilities, and once more people accepted witches, our hero wanted to reveal Anna's existence publicly. But it seems like the cat is already out of the bag. The boy quickly orders Brian to protect Anna from the danger, and he instructs Nightingale to do the same. Meanwhile, Anna steps forward confidently as soldiers gather around her protectively. With a determined look, Anna raises her hands, flames flickering to life, and she creates a wall of fire in the hole in the wall, blocking the monsters from advancing any further. Our hero is completely shocked by the magnificence of Anna's fiery display, but monsters continue to emerge from the flames. That is when the boy locks eyes with Anna. And in that moment, the prince understands what needs to be done. He immediately grabs the gun from the knight's hand and begins shooting down the monsters, aiming straight for their heads. The sight of their prince taking action startles everyone. Our hero raises his own gun, rallying the soldiers to prepare their spears and charge forward. His crisp voice fills the atmosphere as he commands them to protect their wall and their border town. The crowd really gets fired up to protect their town, and everyone is ready to take those critters down. After a while, the last wolf standing takes a bunch of arrows and drops lifeless to the ground, finally letting the soldiers savor their victory. The knight is totally blown away by their successful defense of the turf. But then, the prince suddenly remembers Anna, and he starts losing his shit because he's been so busy commanding that he almost forgot about her. He's worried about how he'll explain all about her being a witch to the civilian army. As he frantically looks around for her, he notices something surprising. Everyone is showing her respect instead of calling her the reincarnation of some devil or whatever. The prince is almost clueless about this unexpected attitude toward her from the civilians. Even though her fiery power had scared him, it seems to have earned trust and gratitude from others as well. When Anna finally stands before the prince, she looks exhausted from using her powers and promptly faints, dramatically falling right onto our hero's chest. The next scene takes us to Clearwater Port at Garcia's residence, where the third princess gets the news that her father has kicked the bucket. According to the letter, her brother, Gerald the First Prince, has been fingered for the assassination and is now locked up by the guards. They're saying he didn't kill himself, but rather got slapped with an execution sentence by the bigwigs. This news really throws her knight for a loop, and he finds it all pretty fishy. After a bit of hemming and hawing, she admits her brother can be a bit of a dumbbell, but he's not dumb enough to wish for death. She lays out how Timothy's trying to shift the blame to Gerald to fool the public, but snagging control of all Grey Castle won't happen overnight. So, she's tweaking her plans accordingly. The knight, though, he's still scratching his head over why Timothy would pull such a stunt, especially when the king always favored him. That's when the princess drops a truth bomb. Timothy's scared of her. He's quaking in his boots at the sight of the black flag. She explains that Timothy's move was totally uncalled for. Sure, he's trying to pin the blame on Gerald for their dad's death, but he can't fool everyone forever. If he wants to take over all of Grey Castle, it will require a more elaborate and sustained effort. Therefore, she decides to adapt her plans accordingly. The lady decides to set sail for Grey Castle tomorrow. Her knight asks if she's planning to go head-to-head with Timothy. She tells him that if Timothy isn't waiting out the 5 years to let the decree end organically, she won't either. The knight looks anxious and mentions that the whole kingdom must be mourning the king's death by now. She jokes if he wants her to shed a tear too. The knight hastily says no and obediently drops to his knees, waiting for her next move. She then instructs him to go fetch the captain of the Black Fleet for her, because they are about to sail as soon as possible. Back in the border town, after that horrific raid by the monsters, there have been no further attacks. The injured soldiers were healed quickly and returned to their duties right away. The chief knight was tasked with using the hybrid monster shell to patch up the broken wall, making it one with the barrier. The largest factor in their victory against the large-scale invasion was undoubtedly Anna. However, it's been a few weeks since she fainted, and she still hasn't woken up. Nightingale mentions today's supposed to be her maturity day, but she's sure she is going to die in her sleep, because the pain of maturity can only be endured while awake. She somberly spills that she's seen too many witches die before her eyes, treated like animals, burned or tortured slowly by nobles for some twisted fun. The lucky ones live in exile, far from society, always chasing the holy mountain, a distant dream they can't catch. But she says Anna's not like the rest. Unlike the Association sisters, she's actually cared for here, valued by our hero, and given due respect. This, Nightingale explains, is what the holy mountain truly signifies: a life free from prejudice. In Anna's case, she has already achieved this. As the memories of Anna flood our hero's mind, her strength, her resolve from the day one to the moment she vowed to stay with the prince, he clutches her hand tightly, refusing to let her slip away. Just as midnight strikes, Nightingale notices Anna's puberty beginning, sensing the magic within her body stirring. A candle nearby starts glowing with an eerie green hue, startling our hero, who wonders if it's the work of demonic spirits. But there's no visible change in Anna herself. Then, unexpectedly, the candle's flame dwindles, causing a wave of anxiety, especially for the young Nana. The candle flickers back to life with that bright green energy, surprising everyone again. Suddenly, Anna opens her eyes, which shocks everyone present. Prince Roland hurries over, immediately asking how she's feeling. Thankfully, Anna seems totally okay. She reaches out her hand toward our stunned hero, and he's not quite sure what to expect. But then, a flame bursts to life over her palm, glowing in that vivid green color, which catches everyone off guard once more. After summoning his courage, Prince Roland cautiously reaches out to touch the flame. Just as he does, the scene shifts into the office, where we see our hero's bewildered face. He is shocked to hear that Nightingale has decided it's time for her to leave the border town. She remarks that Anna not only woke up but also survived being possessed by demons, something totally unexpected and unexplained. She suggests that Anna's new ability with those green flames seems to be fully under her control now, synced perfectly with her mind. Anna can adjust its heat, manipulate it, and even move it within a 5-meter radius whenever she wants. But she's still confused over how she dodged that painful experience, given her super strong magic. The guy figures maybe after she used up all her magic at the border, her magic tank was running on empty, which might have toned down the demon pain. You know, witches are all about magic stuff. Since witches gotta keep their powers hidden from the civilians, all that magic energy builds up inside them. So when they hit maturity, bam, it's like a pressure cooker of magic causing them agony. Nightingale nods along, seeing the logic in his theory, and decides she's got to jet back to the association pronto. Winter's coming, and there's going to be a bunch of witches hitting puberty soon. She vows to bring any survivors back here to Prince Roland's town, hoping he'll take care of them like he did with Anna. But Prince Roland tells her to stay put, maybe wait till the demons have stopped popping up and the weather settles down. Nightingale smirks, saying even getting to association a day early could save lives. Plus, she assures him the demons won't be able to detect her, so she's good to go. The prince then asks about her own awakening, to which the woman brushes it off, saying it's the start of spring and there's no need to worry since she has gotten used to the pain. Still, he advises her to take care on the road. Before disappearing, Nightingale pays her respects to Roland one last time and vanishes abruptly as usual. Her sudden disappearance leaves the prince unsettled because he's never been a fan of her habit of appearing and vanishing without warning. Sitting back, he sinks back into his thoughts, mulling over how if his theory about witches turns out to be true, it could be a game changer. He then looks over at his ridiculously long to-do list, realizing there's a mountain of tasks waiting for him. But just as he starts pondering where to begin, his consultant bursts in with urgent news. A messenger from Longsong Fortress has arrived. The ambassador seems unusually anxious, and the prince wonders if things are going south for Longsong Fortress. His eyes widen as he reads the message. The king has passed away. Redhead, the ambassador, quickly clarifies he's there under orders from Duke Rayan. The royal decree for the 5-year challenge has ended, and Majesty Timothy Wimbledon is now the new king of Grey Castle. The ambassador leaves our hero totally shocked when he reveals that Timothy wants to reward the Prince Roland with new territory and a new position. A moment later, the consultant expresses his grief over the king's death at the hands of the first prince and asks what they should do next. The prince reveals that everything about the situation seems too suspicious to believe, and he will decide after monitoring his two sisters' movements. He admits he doesn't know much about the fifth princess's motives, but he's sure she's not the type to take risks, so he wants to follow her lead. He's also certain that the capital will likely descend into chaos with this power shift, and their priority should be to safeguard their families. With that in mind, he tells his consultant to instruct the chief knight and all castle staff to write letters home. The prince wants to ensure that everyone's families are escorted to other towns to hide. The consultant expresses his gratitude for the prince's careful consideration. The prince also tells his consultant that he wants to stop exporting the town's metals and will only sell gems and rocks to Willowtown, as he wants to use the metals for himself to make more machinery. Additionally, he plans to incorporate more civilians into the army and train them accordingly. He feels smug as he considers the news that the ambassador brought a blessing in disguise. Roland is confident that as long as he hunkers down in Bordertown, someone will try to bite him, such as Duke Rayan from the Longsong Fortress. Once the months of demons pass, he is pretty sure that Duke Rayan will try to extend his influence across the western side of the kingdom under the new administration, and this is precisely what Roland wants. Industrialization is his priority, but what he lacks most is people. Bordertown's population is only around 2,000, limiting the expansion of his projects due to a labor shortage. Buying slaves, recruiting talented individuals, or increasing the birth rate seem unrealistic. On the other hand, if they can take Longsong's stronghold, he can gain a large number of freed people while accumulating wealth. Assimilation is easier, and invasion is the best way to grow the population and gather wealth. Roland acknowledges the hassle of challenging the entire fort of Longsong, and he can only wait for Nightingale to return with the witches. This is also the sole reason the prince wants to expand his civilian army and wants to make more machinery. The next scene takes us to the northern mountain range, where Nightingale proceeds down one of the tunnels. Her steps are soon halted by roots growing out and blocking the entrance. Nightingale immediately introduces herself, and the lady known as Leaf withdraws her roots and gets delighted to see her friend back. After exchanging pleasantries, Leaf reveals that one of the two witches, Erin or Ashley, failed to make it to maturity. They then decide not to dwell on gloomy things and proceed to get inside. Nightingale is looking forward to seeing her friend Wendy, and as soon as Wendy is called over by her friend, she spins around and greets Nightingale warmly, playfully calling her Veronica. Wendy takes Nightingale's hand in hers, causing Nightingale to blush and assert that she's not the same weak girl as before, preferring not to go by Veronica anymore. Wendy insists she shouldn't deny her past because it's a part of her. Nevertheless, Nightingale is glad to see her friend, and they embrace each other tightly. Wendy then inquires about Anna and whether Nightingale managed to help her through her maturity. With a smile, Nightingale reveals that Anna didn't need any saving at all. In fact, what they've discovered is going to change things for all the witches. In a few moments, Nightingale spills the beans to her sisters about the prince and how he's letting everyone stay in his border town without any discrimination against witches. Wendy's not buying it at first, but Nightingale swears up and down that the prince not only said it, but also saved Anna and Nana. Not only that, the prince does not believe in any bullshit about witches being possessed by devils, and stresses that witches get their power from themselves. To seal the deal, Nightingale reminds everyone about her ability to smell lies, so they can trust her when she says the prince is serious. She spills about his plans to protect witches and even go against the church if he even has to. Then she pulls out the steam engine blueprints, proving they can build a kick-ass sanctuary to rival the Holy Mountain. Just as Nightingale's painting this picture of paradise, some lady with green hair barges in, telling everyone to shut up. She seems like their teacher, and Nightingale quickly shows respect by bowing her head. The teacher gives Nightingale the stink eye, wondering aloud if she's saying the Holy Mountain they've been chasing forever is just a bunch of hot air. Next up, we're with the new king, Timothy, where a knight shows up with a stone called Divine Judgment, supposedly the ultimate weapon against demonic forces. The knight boasts that the church has confirmed its power to handle witches for ages, but Timothy's annoyed, blaming witches for his father's suicide. He orders the knight to keep capturing witches and scour the capital thoroughly for more. Meanwhile, back with Nightingale, she wakes up tied to a pillar with that same witch suppression stone around her neck. She's trying to figure out how she ended up in this mess. We flash back to when the green-haired lady freaked out at the idea of the prince siding with witches. She rants about how witches have been persecuted and killed for ages. She believes Nightingale has been deceived by the prince and insists that the pain of maturity is a sacred test for a witch's body and mind, and only those who endure it can achieve true power and find eternal peace in the Holy Mountain. Nightingale is shocked to realize that all the suffering witches endured was just a test for this woman. She's further annoyed at the thought that her fallen sisters, who endured so much pain, are simply dismissed as disqualified subjects. The teacher offers Nightingale a final chance to seek forgiveness for her ignorance and mistakes, promising her mercy. But Nightingale remains resolute, insisting she'll only take sisters with her who believe in her. As she tries to leave, a snake immediately grabs her feet, and before she can react, she blacks out from the venomous injection of petrification, waking up to find herself in her current bind. While they're face to face, Nightingale reminds her why he's using that stone of divine judgment even though they don't believe in that stuff. The snake lady says it's just a tool to punish disobedient kids. She reminds Nightingale how Wendy saved her from the clutches of the aristocrats. Instead of repaying that kindness, now Nightingale is trying to sell them all out to those filthy nobles just to mend her relationships with them again. Nightingale denies any such motive, emphasizing she only wants her sisters to live freely without fear of starvation or the pains of maturity, and believes everyone deserves the right to choose their own path. She points out how much Border Town has changed, pointing out that the steam engine blueprint she brought is just one of many miracles. The snake lady scoffs, saying she can't make heads or tails of the blueprint and tosses it into the fire, declaring that a hunk of steel can't move like it's alive and she's no fool. She then grabs the hot dagger and holds it just inches from Nightingale's neck, letting her know this is her last chance to beg forgiveness for trying to deceive the Witch Association. If Nightingale doesn't comply, she threatens to skewer her heart and turn her into an example for others. Even though she is staring at her death, Nightingale remains defiant. Instead of bowing her head, she'd rather take that dagger straight to her heart. That's when Wendy steps in, reminding them how many sisters they've already lost and they can't afford to lose another. The snake woman grows agitated, demanding to know if Wendy also believes Nightingale's lies. Wendy denies it, stating she's not planning to go to the border town, but she agrees with Nightingale that everyone should have the right to choose their own path. Wendy then asks if anyone wants to bail with Nightingale to the town, but nobody speaks up. Seeing this, Wendy suggests letting Nightingale go solo since she hasn't done anything to harm the gang. The others agree, telling their teacher to set Nightingale free. But the teacher goes absolutely bonkers, saying she can't risk letting Nightingale go because she might expose their turf location to the church. She swings her dagger, ready to strike, but before she can, Wendy steps in and stops her. Wendy grabs a coin and throws it hard at Nightingale, smashing the power suppressor stone. The teacher gets ticked off and goes after Wendy with a snake that bites her hand. But Nightingale springs into action. Before the teacher can react, she's screaming in pain with a sword in her chest, causing her to collapse to the ground. Before anyone can react, Nightingale and her friend start to disappear and exit the tunnel. Wendy doesn't seem to be in good spirits because the poison from the snake bite is spreading across her hand. To stop it from spreading further, Nightingale reluctantly grabs her dagger and severs Wendy's hand from her body. She keeps the hand with her, confident that Nana can heal it back soon. They've been walking forever, and it took them 3 days just to get here. Carrying Wendy is slowing them down further, and with her losing blood, Nightingale fears she won't last another 3 days. But her worries prove unnecessary when a mysterious newcomer arrives, ready to lend a helping hand. A newcomer looks like a boy at first glance, but she is actually a girl. She reassures Nightingale not to freak out. Her name is Lightning, and she recently joined the Witch Association. Nightingale stays cautious around this tomboy and asks if Kara sent her. Lightning shrugs it off, saying it's no wonder Nightingale doesn't recognize her since she's always out and about. She makes it clear she's here because, like Nightingale said earlier, everyone should live life their own way, and she's chosen to stick with Nightingale. Simple as that. She's totally pumped about all the machinery and exploding dynamite, being an explorer at heart. Nightingale wonders why someone so into adventure joined the association. Lightning explains that finding the Holy Mountain is an adventure in itself, but the association is all about books, and Kara's always buried in them. Nightingale asks if Lightning's a fighter, to which she nods, mentioning she can fly too. Or so Lightning thought. She's struggling to move an inch with all that weight over her little shoulders. Finally, she gathers enough energy and starts floating slowly through the air. The tomboy then asks if Lightning knows Wendy for a long time, noting how Wendy called Nightingale Veronica back at base camp. Nightingale confirms they go way back and tells how, before joining the association, people treated her like a puppet. And it was Wendy who showed her way to live. She reveals she had a family in Silver City when she was 13, but her parents disappeared during a commoner uprising. Nightingale's uncle then took her and her brother, Hyde. That was also the year her witch abilities first appeared inside her, but her uncle figured out her secret right away and split her from Hyde, locking her up to train her powers. He threatened to harm Hyde unless she used her abilities for his dirty work. So she became a full-on assassin. Poisoning, ambushing, you name it. She did every kind of horrendous act. As the Gillen family's wealth increased with time, her hands got dirtier and dirtier as well, soaked in the blood of others. The worst part is that her powers were just too perfect for that kind of work. When she finally reunited with Hyde, he turned her away cold, wishing he didn't have a witch for a sister. After that, she was broken inside. When maturity hit, she managed to survive the pain, and her powers also intensified. The prison bars couldn't contain her anymore, so she broke free, killed her uncle, and left with no direction. It was then she found Wendy, who was like a spark of warmth in her cold world. Wendy took her to the association, where she met other witches, and their teacher Kara provided solace to everyone. In the present, Lightning points out that Kara has gone off the rails, finding it hard to believe there's a prince who genuinely cares about witches. After finally reaching Border Town, we find our duo inside this familiar, quaint cottage. The prince can't seem to stop sneezing, wondering who might be thinking about him so much. Just then, a commotion grabs their attention. As they turn around, they see Nightingale and the other two bursting into the cottage, crashing right before their feet. Anna immediately takes her stance to deal with these uninvited intruders. But Nightingale immediately yells at our hero to fetch Nana as quickly as possible. As Nana tends to Wendy's injuries, our hero has no clue what went down at the association that made Nightingale rush back with only 3 witches. He wonders if demons attacked them and if only 3 survived, feeling lucky they have Nana to reattach Wendy's arm. Suddenly, Lightning appears from the infirmary. The prince quickly asks if she's hurt too. Lightning reassures him and points out how the prince really is a decent guy who cares about witches, just like Nightingale said. She admits she didn't believe it at first, just like other members of the association. She then jokes about how the world is full of weirdos, so having a prince like him isn't that surprising. Being called a weirdo doesn't sit well with the prince, who just rolls his eyes. Getting to the point, the prince realizes the association wasn't under attack. That's when Lightning starts explaining the whole situation, clarifying they weren't attacked. Wendy was hurt by their own teacher, Kara, and explains further as to how they ended up here. Once night falls, Prince Roland returns to his room, only to be startled by Nightingale sweetly lying on his bed in her nightsuit. Prince Roland gets all flustered, maybe starting to think about some naughty stuff, imagining Nightingale might be up for getting close after all. Suddenly, Nightingale gets up and strides over to him, leaving him scared out of his wits and pinned against the closed door. He hastily tells her she should rest as long as she needs. But then, Nightingale kneels before the prince. In a serious moment, she, Veronica Gillen, officially swears her loyalty to him. She promises to follow his orders and stand by his side in battle, facing demons or anything else, until her last breath. It's no surprise to our hero that after being let down by the association, Nightingale is turning to him for help with the future of witches. Without missing a beat, he takes the sword from her hands and officially makes her his right-hand woman. The prince asks if her real name is Veronica, and she nods, saying there's no reason to hide it from him now. Next, we catch up with Wendy, who's been offered a contract. Our hero tells her to stay in the border town and work for him. If she's up for it, she can sign on the dotted line, promising good pay for her work. He also spills the beans on a method he's found where witches can sail through their maturity without feeling any pain at all. The news totally throws off the new witches. Once we step outside, our hero admits it's just his guess, and explains that witches are like vessels for magic, and as they get older, their magic builds up until it overflows during maturity, attacking their bodies. He mentions Anna as an example of someone who survived this. He dismisses the idea of demons possessing witches as nonsense, proposing instead that they can manage their level of pain by continuously releasing their magic to maintain balance within them. He promises a safe haven in Border Town where witches can practice their magic freely, without anyone discriminating against them or threatening them. He believes if his idea works out, they can create their own version of the Holy Mountain right here in the borderlands they dream of. Wendy has already signed on to the plan and asks where to start. He simply tells her to keep using her magic until she masters full control over it. Once the prince gets busy with the newcomers and their magic training, Nana and Anna have a little chat about recent events. Nana looks impressed by Wendy's wind magic and Lightning's flying skills, which also saved Wendy's life as well. Anna expresses happiness at having so many sisters around, but Nana points out how Nightingale seems to look at our hero with warmth in her eyes, a detail not to be taken lightly. Anna is clueless about what Nana means, but the little Nana warns her friend not to blame her for not giving a heads up, and if Anna doesn't make a move, Nightingale might just win over our hero. Suddenly, they hear the alarm ringing, a clear sign something's wrong. The report comes in that a demon monster has arrived. The hero rushes to the wall and meets his soldiers. He squints to spot the danger but sees no demons in sight. The prince wonders if it was a false alarm and questions the hunter who raised the alarm. The hunter tells him to look closer, and when he does, he sees a dark blob of mist forming. As he takes a closer look, he's shocked to see a hybrid monster right before his eyes. The hunter reveals it's the same hybrid that nearly killed him a few years back. Hearing this, the boy connects the dots. This monster must have some intelligence, unlike regular beasts that just charge and die. But this monster survived for many years, and it always retreats when it senses danger. When the beast reaches the wall, it suddenly stops, leaving everyone puzzled. Unexpectedly, it jumps into the air, and the prince orders his soldiers to attack it immediately. Before they can react, the monster is already airborne, crashing onto the wall above. Our hero is stunned to see how cunningly it targeted the wall's weakest spot, which confirms our hero's last remaining doubts about this monster's intelligence. Once the demon makes it to the other side of the wall, soldiers report it's heading toward the town. The hero commands his 2nd Civilian Division army to accompany him, while the backup division holds the wall for now. Our hero marches toward the town with his platoon, regretting underestimating the smarts of these monsters. Finally reaching the monster's location, they're hit with the gut-wrenching news that it's already devoured someone alive in town. The trail of blood before our hero's eyes sends a terrifying chill down its spine. But he does not succumb to fear, and annoyingly orders everyone to stay on high alert. The monster pops into view once more, snatching another civilian. Prince Roland immediately cautions everyone as the soldiers look helpless against the monster, unable to use their guns for fear of hitting civilians in the chaos. Not only that, the soldiers can't even get close to this monstrosity. Iron Axe commands his soldiers to get on rooftops and higher ground to aim precisely without harming civilians. Soldiers immediately climb up to the rooftop to take their positions. Despite the odds, soldiers manage to shoot over the monster's overgrown head, but they slightly miss their mark. The monster glares back with an annoyed face. But before it can strike, Iron Axe closes in and blasts the monster's head right away, finally avenging the innocent lives taken by this monster. In the Hermes perimeter, north of Grey Castle, a gigantic mutated creature crawls its way toward the towering wall. The knights on the wall tremble as they witness the enormity of the approaching monster. Upon finally stepping on the rooftop, the creature drools and immediately perks up at the sight of the humans nearby. Without hesitation, the monster opens its massive mouth, unleashing an entire army of monsters marching out from its belly. The soldiers realize they're trapped with no escape route in sight. Still, they immediately start running in the opposite direction while a creature in the sky keeps following the soldiers. Eventually, when they reach the inner city's north wall, they find themselves waiting for the gate to open. The girl reveals to us that the whole outer city has been wrecked by the monsters. They've got to defend the church, but with only a handful of soldiers and monsters right on their tails, it looks like a tough fight ahead. But then the girl pulls out a red pill and instructs the soldiers to take it and annihilate the enemy. Without hesitation, the soldiers obey her command. As they swallow the pill, they feel a surge of energy coursing through them, empowering them to march forward against the monsters. Before these foolish soldiers can get slaughtered by those monsters, the gate finally drops, revealing a cocky figure striding out. He declares himself as part of the Judgment Army and orders everyone to clear the path. These soldiers are clad head to toe in sturdy armor, appearing like elite knights. The lady is bewildered by the sudden appearance of this so-called Judgment Army, having no clue who they even are. However, she doubts that mere humans stand a chance against the hybrid monsters. But it looks like we're about to find out if these soldiers are all talk, or if they've got the goods. As the monster and army of Judgment comes face to face, the sky monster swoops down. One of the knights on the ground immediately grabs hold of its gigantic sharp claws, and the other knight takes a stance and sends a spear flying with godly speed, piercing the monster right through the head. The woman is completely blown away by the soldiers' speed and strength, which is matching the power of hybrids. As these badass knights wreak havoc on the monsters, the scene shifts to a church spire. On the balcony, we see 3 archbishops using a telescope to observe the Judgment Army. Seeing those monsters dead on the ground, they seem pleased to see that their army appears to be winning against the monsters. Archbishop Taefun shakes his head, noting the worst part of the battle was the total annihilation of the reinforcement armies sent by the 4 great kingdoms. Archbishop Heather chuckles in agreement, commenting on how those kingdoms sent thousands of soldiers who ended up as mere cannon fodder. She's clearly pleased, seeing it as proof that the border defenses of those kingdoms can't hold a candle to the church's mighty Judgment Army. However, a third individual interjects, pointing out the heavy toll of using so many pills in the process and the loss of much of the judicial army, which forms the core of the church's power. Taefun clenches his teeth, emphasizing that they had no choice because the beasts of the wastelands have appeared exactly as foretold in the Bible. He warns that time is running out, and unless the continent unifies and gathers its strength, destruction awaits them all. The arrogant lady chuckles again, saying humans are basically monsters committing horrifying acts just like demons, so maybe wiping out humanity isn't such a bad idea after all. This really ticks off the old man, who tells her to cut out the blasphemous talk and stop defying God's will. But the girl just brushes it off with another sassy comment, saying God never promised humanity would survive, and further challenges the old man, asking if he's sure God cares more about humans than demons. The old man looks even more ticked off, but he stays quiet. Maybe because deep down, he knows there's some truth in what she's saying. Well, even Archbishop Maine thinks the same way as that woman does, but he is also sure that God only favors those who come out on top. Back in the border town, they lay the fallen soldier to rest. Our hero gathers everyone's attention and announces that they are gathered to mourn Mr. Aggie from the Civilian Army 2nd Division. The prince goes on with the usual talk about the man's heroic deeds in sacrificing his life to save their hometown, bidding him a final farewell as they cover his grave with mud. Chief Knight Carker is deeply moved by our hero's compassionate gesture, noting he's never seen someone of noble birth show such respect for commoners whose names he didn't even know. Our hero points out that giving a proper farewell feels right, especially since Bordertown has never held proper funerals for those lost to the monsters, and they deserved more than a hastily dug hole. Besides, the prince believes that holding these funerals serves the purpose of decency and boosts morale. He explains that when people reflect on who and what they're fighting for, it can spark a profound change in an army. He aims to ignite everyone's willpower to steer Bordertown back on track. The wife of the deceased soldier shows up with her 2 kids, one of them really small. The soldiers nearby start wondering how she'll manage now, but this bald guy steps in and explains she'll get her husband's salary, some extra cash, and all the basics to get by. While they talk, Vice Captain Vanner suddenly senses someone nearby. The bald guy asks if something's up, and Vanner mentions feeling a presence of someone but brushes it off, saying he's probably imagining things. Back at the cement-making cottage, our hero catches up with Anna and asks how things are going with making barrels for the blunderbuss guns. Anna sweetly explains that thanks to the new steam-powered boring machine, the blacksmiths can handle most of the heavy lifting now. Meanwhile, Lighting is bouncing off the walls as usual, super pumped about all the new stuff. She bombards the poor smiths with so many questions, they can barely keep up. Well, the prince was already wondering why he has not seen her around lately. I guess he now knows why. Looks like our hero has another project for her to handle. He shows her the rough sketch of a 12-pound gun, essentially a giant weapon for our sweet Nana. The prince then delves into the technical details of how these things work, but everything he says goes right over Anna's head. He then instructs her to use those 2 holes on the ground to cast a die for cannonballs. Anna gets right to work and starts pouring the molten metal into the holes, while the prince warns her not to stare at the bright lava. She immediately closes her eyes, and our hero starts blushing before he moves to wipe the sweat from her face. It's quite literally hilarious that despite the freezing temperatures in this place, these guys are still sweating. Looks like the knight can see that this is more than just a prince wiping the sweat, and the way the prince is blushing just proves it further, and Anna is also blushing as well. Meanwhile, there's this guy who's absolutely freaked out to see our hero, the 4th Prince of Grey Castle, openly sheltering witches. He's practically sprinting to report this back to the king. Looks like Vanner wasn't imagining things when he felt someone's presence, because this man is definitely a spy sent by the new King Timothy. What's really messing with this guy's head is how these regular folks are just chilling with witches. And don't get him started on the other weird stuff he's seen, like that giant wall that popped up out of nowhere on the border, those metal sticks shooting projectiles to kill demons, and the fact that witches are treated like they're just regular folks by the prince. It's all making him think this town's cursed or something, and he's feeling like he's dealing with some dark magic. If they hadn't waved a fat paycheck in his face, he'd have never agreed to spy on this messed up place. Well, looks like this dude failed miserably at his sole job of spying, because we can see Vanner in the background, calling this oddball out right away and telling him to halt his tracks. Word spreads like wildfire that there's a spy among them. This poor guy has no clue what to do before an angry mob comes for him. All he can think about is how the fourth prince must be channeling powers straight from the devil. Inside the castle, we catch up with the consul again. He's losing his shit over the prince's latest demand: buy 2 boats but don't hire captains and crews. Like, how's he supposed to float boats without a crew? The old coot's utterly worn out by these ridiculous orders that somehow always end up working in the prince's favor. Then comes a knock on the door. A soldier reports they've caught a rat, a guy named Cole, also known as Groundhog, who's apparently Prince Timothy's spy. Turns out this guy's been living under a fake identity for months, pretending to be a border town resident. They found a letter and some money on him, but he's still being grilled for more info. The old man orders them to squeeze every last drop of intel and execute him right away. Looks like the old man is not freaking out because this is already a 4th spy they have found out. Our clever prince had foreseen more spies would come, so he told the old man to announce that there are people in the border town trying to destroy their food reserves. He instructed everyone to keep an eye out for anyone acting suspiciously, promising a reward for anyone who catches a spy. The old man is always surprised by our hero's cunning decisions. He sees him as a devil who doesn't even fear the stone of divine judgment. Back in the Grey Castle capital, Timothy inquires about the royal decrees he sent to his siblings, but none of them have replied. One of his men reports that the 4th prince, our hero, sent a reply stating he will return once the months of demons are over and his people are safe. The reporter points out that Prince Roland still acknowledges Timothy as a prince, not a king. Timothy considers our hero a fool for opposing him, especially since Timothy had plans to offer him land and a comfortable life. He dismisses Roland as an oddball and asks his lackey if there's been any response from the 3rd and 5th princesses. The lackey reveals that the 3rd princess has disappeared from the city along with her butler and 2 servants, and they haven't been found since. The prince facepalms in disappointment, as he never wanted commoners to lay a hand on his sister despite any personal disagreements. He then inquires about Garcia Wimbledon, the stubborn pirate. Before the council member could speak up, Timothy orders him to seize her water port and forcibly escort her back to the capital. Right on cue, a knight arrives on the scene and hastily reports that Garcia Wimbledon has defeated Duke Joseph's Carl at the southern border and gained full control of Hawk City. The news terrifies Timothy beyond belief, and he sinks even further into despair when he hears she has crowned herself Queen of Clearwater with the blessings of the local dukes, and the whole southern half of Grey Castle has split off. Next scene, we're down by the river south of Border Town, where our top captains are tearing down the cannon they just put together. Both of these tough guys are beat, griping to their boss that this thing is way too damn heavy. The chief knight then asks why he got stuck guarding this behemoth, since no one can move it an inch, let alone stealing it. Our hero just sighs, explaining it's not just something, it's a masterpiece built with blood, sweat, and the grind of steel. He wonders why others can't see its beauty like he does. Moving on, Lightning is itching to clean the barrel, so our hero gives her the green light to go ahead. Watching this eager tomboy happily doing her job, the knight gets confused and asks why Lightning hasn't signed a labor contract. Our hero explains she insisted on working for free as long as the prince kept inventing interesting stuff. All she needs are food and clothes, and this broke idiot couldn't pass up such a steal of a deal. After Lightning finishes cleaning the barrel and reports it's empty, she eagerly waits for the next step. Before we move on, our hero tells his soldiers to remember the first step, making sure there's nothing stuck inside the barrel. Next up, they need to load in the gunpowder and slap that cannonball on top, making sure to push it down real hard to get rid of any air. Then, they stick in a fuse to light up the party. Once everything's set, the prince tells everyone to clear out and lights the fuse. It starts sizzling right away, so everyone covers their ears to save their eardrums. Boom! The cannonball goes flying straight at the dummy and punches a hole right through its chest. While the hunter prays to God to see such devastating power, Vanner is also blown away. Even after smashing the dummy, the cannonball keeps going for another 100 meters, proving our mission's a total win. A 12-pound cannon can theoretically reach thousands, so these results are solid for a first shot. The knight respects the weapon's power, but worries it's too heavy to lug around. Cleaning, loading, and carting cannonballs and gunpowder is a hassle. Our hero nods, saying the effort's worth it if it means slaying hybrid demons effortlessly. He's already thinking of using ships to solve the weight problem, and has enlisted the old consul's help in acquiring sailboats from Willow Town. Wendy's wind control will increase transportation speeds for both civilians and cannons, aiding their strategy against the Duke of the Longsong Fortress. He envisions a pincer attack by approaching the Duke's army from the rear. So much for his boat dreams. The old man burst his bubble by saying they can't afford any sailing boats. A double-masted sailboat costs a whopping 120 golden coins, and that doesn't even cover the crew, which runs about 200 golden royals. Even if they blew all 315 golden coins they have in their treasury, they'd only get the boats, with no pay left for the civilian army next month. Back in the office, our hero keeps arguing with this stubborn geezer that he doesn't need a crew. But the old man keeps insisting that's not how things roll in Willowtown. Boats come with crews. If he wants a boat, he's got to hire them too. But then the prince gets this bright idea to buy boats from another town. But the old man shoots him down again, saying all the major ports are too far away and it'd cost a fortune to bring boats here to Border Town. But then our hero comes up with a crazy idea. Why not build a boat themselves? He says they don't need anything fancy, just something to float since Wendy will handle the steering. A simple flat-bottomed barge would do the trick. But then the old coot brings up another problem about the materials they'll use. Our hero confidently suggests using light wood, but then he realizes a boat of logs might not be as durable and reliable. He even considers having Anna help weld a proper metal boat, but he's already used up all the metal-making guns and stuff. Then, the idiot remembers they have tons of concrete left over from building the wall. He suggests using wood for the base and reinforcing it with steel rebar, then making the rest of the boat out of concrete. We don't need to waste any more time figuring out how he plans to make this boat happen. Let's just wait for our hero to finish up the blueprint and get started. Before long, we're down by the riverside at a makeshift boat workshop. They've already put together the basic structure of the boat. When Lightning sees the giant thing, she cracks a joke about it being a massive bathtub fit for a king's lavish baths. Our hero chuckles and corrects her, saying they're actually building a boat, not a bathtub. But Lightning is still skeptical. To her, it doesn't quite look like any boat she's seen before. While they banter back and forth, Wendy's happy to see Lightning and our prince getting along just fine. To which, Nightingale points out that getting along with others has always come naturally to Lightning. She was just as energetic back in the association days. The mention of the association immediately saddens Wendy out as she worries about her other sister's safety. Back in the mountain range, we see the witches marching down. As they walk, one of the sisters alerts everyone about the presence of demons. The teacher quickly tells Lady Leaf to lay her down and help the others. Lady Leaf gently puts her injured teacher on the ground. As the monsters approach, the witches stride forward to face them. Meanwhile, the teacher blames Nightingale for their sorry state and vows to get payback once she finds the Holy Mountain and gathers more witches. She hasn't forgotten about Wendy and Lightning either, feeling betrayed by them. When the monsters leap at them, Lady Leaf works her magic, summoning roots that grab the beasts, while Zephyr, another witch, sucks the air out of their lungs. Seeing the girls take down those monsters puts a grin on the teacher's face. She's sure that with their combined effort, they'll bring the church crashing down once they reach the Holy Mountain. The teacher decides to take a breather for a while here, but suddenly she's left in shock by what she sees before her eyes. She wonders aloud if this could be the Holy Mountain. Before them rise skyscraper-like structures that couldn't possibly be built by humans. The sight brings a giant smile to the teacher's face as she believes they've finally found the Holy Mountain. However, the others are not convinced. According to all the books, the Holy Mountain is supposed to be a serene and abundant place, which is drastically different from what they're seeing. Despite Leaf still being unsure, the teacher is going nuts over the grand structures and is absolutely convinced this is the Holy Mountain. Leaf hesitates to voice her doubts, recalling what the teacher did to Nightingale when she disagreed. Feeling she has no other choice, Leaf reluctantly starts walking forward. She's certain that if they don't explore further, the teacher will never rest. As they're walking, one of the witches suddenly drops dead. Lady Leaf tries to pause to mourn her friend, but the teacher snaps at her to keep moving forward, warning that stopping could mean their own death at nightfall. Leaf starts crying, torn between grief and the teacher's urgent commands. The teacher insists that lingering here would only invite demon attacks. They continue on, but then another witch realizes the supposed mountain they were aiming for has vanished. This sight shocks the teacher, who, let's face it, acts more like a tyrant than a caring leader. The teacher sinks into despair, recalling a city that's like an unreachable illusion in the sky, disappearing every time with the sunset. The snake woman declares it was all just an illusion, something she'd heard rumors of typically occurring at sea, but seeing it on land was unheard of. Suddenly, something approaches them, confirmed by another witch to be 3 demons once again. But this time, it becomes clear this new threat is not just a regular demon. This mysterious entity attacks one of the witches with some weapon, leaving Leaf frozen in place as her friend is struck down, a long spear piercing her chest in an instant. Leaf stares at where the spear came from with disbelief. Before them stand hybrid creatures, riding demonic beasts. Looking at their ripped bodies, it's no wonder they took down the girl with just one blow. One of the witches immediately uses her abilities to turn the ground into a swamp, but the creatures effortlessly leap from their mounts and land right in front of the women. One monster swings its hand, smashing a witch with brutal force, splattering blood everywhere, leaving the sisters absolutely terrified out of their minds. The beasts then turn towards the remaining sisters, who stand petrified and trembling in their boots. Suddenly, another monster fixates on a redhead among them. Her face pales as the creature approaches, its grotesque tongue-like appendage dangling from its mouth, which is a far cry from any normal tongue. Before the beast can reach her, it's struck by a fireball. Though it annoys the creature more than hurts it, the redhead grabs the hand of the traumatized orange-haired witch and urges her to run. But the orange-haired witch is so shaken that she's forgotten how to move. Another witch decides to confront and pulls out her puny bow, which, let's be real, looks like a toy, and she's brutally kicked by the monster right in the chest. She goes flying and sprawls on the ground, and it wouldn't be surprising if she died from that single blow. Despite seeing her friends drop like bugs, Wendy uses her root magic once again to try and immobilize one of the monsters, wrapping it from head to toe. The snake lady sends her snake to crawl around the beast, and together they bring the formidable creature to its knees. Wendy urges everyone to run while she keeps the monster restrained. Meanwhile, the other monster immediately retrieves a spear from its back. As it tries to throw the spear, its feet sink into the swampy ground. However, the monster manages to throw the spear with incredible speed, leaving only a trail of pink light as it goes straight for its target, leaving nothing but a haze upon impact. Well, surprisingly, Wendy manages to narrowly avoid the attack, but suddenly the other monster unleashes its electrical powers, zapping everyone in range. Once everyone is down, only Wendy and the cocky snake women remains. Wendy still does not want to accept this reality as how their world turned upside down in a short time. The monster walks forward toward the snake lady, and in the next moment the monster extends his giant hand and grabs her right away. As he lifts her up, she unleashes her poisonous snakes, and one of them bites the thing we thought was a tongue protruding from the monster's mouth. As soon as the snake sinks its teeth into the monster's appendage, a red fog starts leaking out. The monster annoyingly grabs the snakes with its bare hands and squeezes them hard enough. Tears of agony well up in the teacher's eyes while Wendy watches in horror. Suddenly, the demon drops the snake woman to the ground, while he himself appears to be choking and struggling for breath. You know what? This snake bitch totally deserved every bit of it, because she was getting under my nerves ever since she popped up into this story. Anyway, the monster's legs tremble and it collapses to its knees. The red mist completely drains from the container on its back, and the giant creature slumps lifelessly to the ground. It seems Wendy has started to piece together how to deal with these creatures. She then looks at the other monster flailing in the swamp, screaming and trapped. She spots that weird appendage, and takes a wild guess it might be their weak spot. Summoning her strength, she rushes over to her fallen sister and grabs the crossbow. With determination in her eyes, she aims straight for that appendage, yelling as she lets the arrow fly, hell-bent on avenging her fallen sisters. When the arrow hits, red mist starts pouring out, sealing her victory. Throwing the bow aside, Wendy drops to her knees with a heavy heart. The monster keeps oozing that red stuff as she's surrounded by her sisters' lifeless bodies. Tears stream down her face, her sobs echoing in the quiet aftermath. Back at the Battleground Hospital in Bordertown, it seems Nana's time to hit her maturity has arrived. Everyone watches anxiously as she lies in bed, asking if she's going to die. The prince and the others immediately reassure her with warm smiles, telling her that everything will be okay, explaining that because she's been releasing her magic power every day, her magic won't turn against her. Wendy gives her a comforting pat and agrees with our hero's words as well. Nana's worried father moves closer, urging her to squeeze his hand if the pain gets too much for her to bear. The others join in, deciding to lighten the mood with some coin magic tricks and storytelling. Their lively atmosphere helps lift Nana's worries. Anna then also steps forward, reminding Nana that everyone is by her side, gently kissing her forehead like a caring sister. As midnight approaches, everyone remains seated around her bed, patiently waiting for her to hit maturity. Lightning, true to her energetic self, only seen not bored. On the other hand, the prince looks like he's on the verge of fainting, yawning uncontrollably. Just watching Lightning's energetic behavior is enough to tire him out. He turns to Nightingale and asks if there have been any magical fluctuations in Nana's body. Nightingale shakes her head, mentioning it's been a long wait and she hasn't noticed anything unusual. The prince gives himself a slap on the face to stay awake, already planning to build a clock tower once the months of demons are over, because he finds waiting aimlessly too tedious. Suddenly, Nightingale hears a rooster crowing. The prince pulls aside the curtain and is momentarily blinded by the morning light. Anna wakes up too, startled by the sudden brightness. It's clear the next day has officially arrived, and everyone is pleasantly surprised as Nana wakes up at daybreak. Lightning bursts with happiness, and her father breaks down in tears. Everyone is incredibly relieved that Nana has successfully passed through her maturity ordeal without any issues. After some time, the prince leans over to Nightingale and asks if she's absolutely sure today is Nana's maturity day. Nightingale nods, mentioning the change was subtle but definite. She agrees with our hero's theory about witches, how daily magic practice can boost their powers and ease their hardships. If all witches get good training daily, they could make it to adulthood without issues. Wendy joins in, saying since the prince is the only one welcoming witches, they could turn Bordertown into a sanctuary. She pledges full support, and the prince lights up, saying he's been thinking about this for ages. But since openly inviting witches could get him cancelled by the kingdom, he plans to spread rumors about a sanctuary to let the witches come by themselves. However, if he becomes the king, there will be no one stopping him to invite witches. Wendy drops to her knees, promising to help him become king. She swears her loyalty and says her life belongs to him now. The next day, our hero's sail ship finally makes it ashore. Two soldiers take a close look and start pointing out all sorts of technical flaws that make this boat unlike any they've seen before. Once they finish their inspection, they decide to head back to cannon training. Meanwhile, some daydreaming soldiers, trailing behind Vice Captain Vanner, start talking loudly about wanting to be as formidable as Hunter Iron Axe. But then one of them gets serious, pointing out they've been training forever without firing a single shot, and wonders when the prince will actually let them loose in a real battle. Another soldier mentions how those in the Flintlock team have already been at it for days, practicing battle tactics on the walls. That's when Vanner starts to wonder if our hero really plans to use the cannon team against demonic beasts. But, considering how heavy and bulky the cannon is, it's not exactly ideal for transporting up onto the walls. Finally, it clicks for Vanner that their master's strategy involves using the cannon on the sailing boat, not just against beasts, but against a strong army. At the west shore of Redwater River in Border Town, we find the cannon team undergoing training under the command of Hunter Iron Axe. They've been tasked with aiming the cannon in a specific direction. The chief knight remarks on how hardworking the cannon team looks, and our hero agrees, noting that both teams are pushing themselves to earn 5 more silver coins than the others, which fuels their determination to succeed. The prince plans to move operations to Littletown once the soldiers are well trained on the ground. Curiously, the knight asks if our hero means the concrete ship they built, and our hero nods, saying that's what he's calling it. He points out that the workers managed to wrap up everything in these few days when the snow was light. They not only slapped on some anti-rust treatment, but also threw together a shed for storing cannonballs. And hey, Wendy's got herself a platform now to play around with her wind powers to stir the boat. Chief Knight finally gets why our hero was so bent on training Wendy to handle her magic. Then Prince Roland drops a bomb on the poor knight by making him the commander of the boat. The knight freaks out, saying he's never sailed a ship in his life. Our hero shrugs it off, saying it's no big deal because the witches will be the ones running the show anyway. When the soldiers finally let loose a cannonball, it goes boom. And our hero is feeling pretty smug as he is about to kick off this new leg of his journey aboard his boat. With the glass bottle shattered by the impact, Lightning finally inaugurates their boat adventure, all set to sail as Littletown's navigator. Meanwhile, Taigu Pine, the overprotective dad, takes charge of communications. On the other hand, the knight reluctantly roped into the role of captain doesn't look too thrilled. Lightning gives the knight a reassuring pat on the shoulder, assuring him that navigating suits her perfectly since she's a pro at sea adventures. She mentions her dad, known as Thunderbolt, also has a knack for the sea. Exploring the ship, Lightning is totally blown away by the bizarre materials it's made of, unlike anything she's ever seen. The chief knight is pleased that the weather is surprisingly good today, a choice made by our hero for testing Littletown. Once the boat is on the water, everything seems to be going smoothly, with a man named Brian assigned as helmsman. Lightning then tells Brian to turn the rudder fully to the right, and the knight echoes the same command. The tomboy gets curious and asks why the chief knight is repeating her, to which he explains he's following orders from the prince. Meanwhile, Brian is clueless about what he's supposed to do, so Lightning, after facepalming, decides to take charge herself. She goes all out and spins the rudder sharply to the left, leaving the two behind totally terrified. After her little adventure, Lightning marvels at how our hero has paid attention to details that even someone with years of sea experience like herself might miss. Lightning then tells Wendy to crank up the wind, since she has been assigned a role as movement power support. Before she got this title, our hero had pushed Wendy to master her magic, which she hadn't really bothered with before getting to Border Town. After some serious effort, her early attempts were only enough to blow dry some pieces of meat, but she matured slowly. And now, armed with those lessons, Wendy channels her magic and gives the boat a solid shove, sending it sailing above the water effortlessly. Lightning and the knight are pumped to see the boat moving, while this father gets all deep philosopher, pointing out how our hero turned rocks into boats and made them float. At this point, he's starting to believe there's nothing our hero can't pull off in this world. As the boat continues to sail smoothly, the man gives props to Brian for becoming a sailor in less than half an hour. Brian sheepishly credits Lightning because she was the one who was guiding him through everything properly. Meanwhile, on the pedestal, Wendy starts feeling drained and struggles to keep up with pushing the boat, as if running out of magical power. But she takes it as a challenge, pushing her limits with a goal to last until the ship reaches shore. Or so she thought. Wendy starts losing consciousness, and Lightning immediately directs everyone to steer the boat towards shore because Wendy has fallen ill. Once the tomboy gets her down, they find Wendy's entire body covered in icy sweat, potentially freezing her to death. They chide her for not informing them about her condition earlier, but it seems their streak of fortune has just taken a turn, as their boat also crashes into some rocks which causes damage. The captain bellows orders, directing Lady Lightning to escort Lady Wendy back to the castle while commanding the others to stay and gather the sails. As Lightning immediately departs with Wendy, the captain of the damaged ship is visibly disheartened. He reflects that while their test of Littletown was not a failure, it hasn't quite been a success either. At least they've identified two critical issues to address: keeping Lady Wendy warm on the pedestal and making the boat shockproof. Meanwhile, back in town, a carriage travels down a desolate road. The driver of this carriage is a one-legged man, and inside the carriage a priest can be seen beating the shit out of this little girl. And this girl is apparently not alone in this carriage. The carriage driver couldn't help but feel sorry for the girls, even though the man inside the carriage seemed to be their only lifeline. Without him, these girls would have likely frozen on the streets. When the man steps out of the carriage, the driver asks if they are all orphans from Wolfheart Kingdom. The priest nods, explaining that churches in the kingdom take in children when food and clothing are scarce. And since church ends up taking tenfold kids nowadays, the priest is glad that they have a driver someone like him to rely on. Grateful for the well-paying job, the driver appreciates earning 20 silvers to transport these orphans. And since he does not have one of his legs, driving the carriage just suits him perfectly. Little does the driver know, these girls aren't ordinary orphans, they are witches. That's why the priest pays him so generously. But the priest doesn't disclose this detail, just urging the driver to keep going without questions and promising payment upon arrival. Once they stop at a hotel to grab some food, the priest tells a woman that he's brought some tender kids for her to take care of. While that awful man parades those girls around like merchandise, the carriage driver can't bear to watch his client exploit them for a quick buck. He closes the curtains, unable to stomach the sight of their humiliation. The scene shifts to Archbishop Maine descending into a vast underground chamber once again. He marvels at the sight, acknowledging that no matter how many times he visits, the grandeur of the dome never fails to take his breath away. The Archbishop asserts that this dome, which he calls a natural creation, is surely the work of the Lord. The Archbishop explains that while the Hermes Church above ground symbolizes steadfastness, the heavily guarded depths of the Hermes dungeon might be the true heart of the church. Once he steps into that mysterious facility, a knight guides the priest deeper into its depths. As they stroll along, we learn these knights are the church's most steadfast hounds, rewarded with homes in these tunnels for their loyalty. Any disciplinary actions are dealt with severely, often resulting in lifelong confinement within the very dungeons they guard. Other tunnels house libraries filled with church literature, historical documents, and notably, the prison where those unlucky criminals rot away for good. Through another door they go, entering the prison where desperate voices beg for freedom, willing to trade their lives just to escape. The priest stops before a particular cell, secured with a large lock. He instructs the knight to wait outside and, once alone, he urges the prisoner inside to eat properly. The priest reminds him that his meals are among the best, though alcohol is understandably excluded. Well, the man in the prison is apparently the King Wimbledon, and he questions if the priest would even have anything to eat in a place like this, while lamenting 6 months of isolation without any news of his son and daughter. The priest appears reluctant to disclose anything, but finally shares the grim news under the king's pressure. Gerald Wimbledon, the king's first son, was executed on Timothy's orders for regicide. The third prince, Garcia, has declared herself Queen of Clearwater, setting the stage for an inevitable clash with Timothy. As for our hero and the fifth princess, they are alive, but there are no significant updates to report. The old man is completely shocked by the news about his first son. He can't hide his sadness as he asks the priest why he waited so long to throw him in jail. King Wimbledon then reveals that the priest used a witch to create a body double of him to get rid of his first son. He acknowledges the church's growing influence across the kingdom, but demands to know why the priest is causing his beloved children to fight each other through royal decrees. He makes it clear that he would never have allowed such strife among his kids. The priest responds by saying that his children are now adults making their own decisions. He points out that his daughter, Garcia Wimbledon, took over Clearwater Port 5 years ago and wouldn't sit back while her brothers fought for the throne. Furthermore, he emphasizes that the church couldn't afford to waste time and had to remove the King Wimbledon to firmly establish their control over the kingdom. The priest declares that the continent will no longer be divided among the 4 great countries which are Dawn, Wolfheart, Everwinter, and Greycastle. Instead, it will unite as one land under the church's rule and governance. The old man, looking defeated as hell, drops to his knees, blood's dribbling from his mouth, but he still manages to spit out that he'll be waiting for the priest in hell. The priest, not giving a damn, brushes off the whole hell thing, saying their moves are all part of the church's grand plan. The king kicks the bucket right there, probably poisoned. But who knows? The priest sees this as their golden ticket to power, and he is preparing to take down the real enemy they have ahead of them. I guess he is talking about the demons, the true enemy they have yet to repel for the greater good of humanity. Honestly, church politics never really did it for me, but this series has been a wild ride. Can't wait to see what our hero gets up to next. Back at the Witches Association camp in the mountains, the witches who stayed behind are mourning their fallen sisters who died because they did not make it through their maturity. One of them speaks up, worried about their next steps. They barely escaped death themselves, and now their sisters who went off to find the holy mountain haven't returned in 2 weeks. Their food is also running low, which is only adding to their anxiety. Suddenly, they hear footsteps approaching. It's Lady Leaf. She enters the tunnels and drops to her knees, completely exhausted, and her face eventually meets the floor. Rewinding a bit in time, we find Lady Leaf walking a desolate path, her face pale from the harsh weather and hunger gnawing at her belly. Suddenly, her maturity hits hard while on this desolate journey. Just as she's grappling with this personal battle, a monstrous figure appears right behind her. Startled, she turns and begs for help, only to snap awake abruptly from her nightmare. As she sits up, Hummingbird tells her she's been out cold for 2 whole days. The other witches gather around, looking worried. One of them apologizes for discussing serious stuff right after she's woken up, but the sister insists they've already hashed it out. If Kara doesn't come back, Leaf will have to step up as the teacher to keep the association from falling apart after the recent losses. Without a second thought, Lady Leaf decides she's going to find Nightingale. This bombshell leaves everyone stunned. They're hesitant to believe Nightingale's tale about Border Town, unsure if they can really trust her. Lady Leaf then reassures everyone that they can find a safe place to rest, while she assesses the situation first at the Border Town. She instructs the purple-haired witch to take the role of teacher if she doesn't return, citing her experience as a former member of association. She places her faith in their hands, emphasizing that if Nightingale's information is accurate, Border Town will become their new holy mountain, potentially ending the need for their current association. Meanwhile, back in town, our party confronts some monsters. When one of the creatures vaults over the wall, Vanner thrusts his spear into its belly. However, as he tries to lift the monster, the spear snaps in half, causing the creature to crash back to the ground. The vice captain quickly orders the muskets to be prepared, and they promptly follow his command, shooting down the monsters without delay. One of the soldiers offers a spear to the vice captain, who is surprised to see a young boy named Claw there. Claw explains that he goes wherever he's needed to help. As the monsters lie defeated on the ground, the captain acknowledges that while they don't pose a significant threat, they must remain vigilant. He expresses his thrill that ever since our hero took charge of Border Town, they've been able to repel these terrifying monsters. Previously, it was only possible with the help of Longsong Fortress, but now even the town's commoners can fight thanks to our hero's leadership. He notes our hero's consistent presence on the mountain during times of danger, standing alongside ordinary soldiers. Suddenly, a hybrid monster appears, and a soldier promptly reports it as a winged lion hybrid. Lightning eagerly steps up to take on the monster, but our hero advises him not to rush. They stick to the plan. Lightning will act as bait to draw the demon's attention while ensuring she stays at a certain height. The monster lands on the wall's surface, and Lightning, brimming with confidence, decides to go for it, assuring everyone he won't disappoint. The prince officially initiates the hunt, but Lightning's confidence is momentarily shaken when he remarks that our hero's determined roar sounded more like a whimpering dog. After blurting out this unexpected comment, Lightning vanishes, leaving our hero unsure how to respond. He even asks the other ladies if he sounded that weird, and they reluctantly agree. The prince tells the ladies to stick to the plan and stay safe, and they nod in agreement. With a smile, the prince looks up at the sky, pleased to see everything going according to plan. Meanwhile, the monster is getting increasingly annoyed as our mischievous tomboy keeps pelting it with pebbles. She eggs the monster on, and it roars back at her. She dashes around it, teasing and taunting like she's playing tag with a giant cat. The monster gets frustrated and smashes the ground with a mighty blow, but Lightning is still enjoying the game. As the monster continues to chase her, Nightingale rushes through her dimensional space, because Lightning has successfully lured the monster into the town square. She tells Anna that even in her hidden dimension, the monster can still sense them with its sharp senses. So she advises Anna to approach cautiously with her fire, which has a radius of 5 meters, emphasizing they only have one shot to take down the beast, and they can't afford any slip-ups. Meanwhile, Lightning's still playing tag with the lion, making it increasingly ticked off with her relentless pursuit. When the ladies spot their chance, Anna gets down to business. Once the lion's in her sights, they pop back from that dimension. Anne immediately unleashes her green fiery powers, hitting the monster with screeching hot flames so intense that even Nightingale feels the heat from across the way. Lightning also boasts about her fire, which could even melt the steel, so roasting a monster alive is not a big deal for her. Once the monster is incinerated into ashes, the prince is kinda glad to see that Anna didn't even need help to defeat the monster. Suddenly, the other monsters start retreating, leaving everyone puzzled as to why they are withdrawing. Our hero catches sight of something unexpected and looks up with astonishment on his face. He sees the gloomy clouds clearing from the sky and sunshine forcefully making its way through it, indicating that the months of demons have ended. News quickly spreads that the months of demons have finally ended, and everyone basks in this moment of triumph. Our hero gathers everyone together, and as he starts his speech, the crowd of townsfolk and soldiers gets all hyped up, cheering about how nobody went hungry this winter under our prince's watch. The prince acknowledges that the months of demons are behind them now, and Bordertown has come out on top with few casualties, all thanks to the gutsy civilian army. He contrasts this with how Longsong Fortress used to threaten them with starvation and cold, but today's victory proves that Bordertown can stand tall on its own. The crowd goes wild again, thrilled that they don't need to depend on others anymore. With a grin, the king decides to throw a big bash to celebrate their hard-won success. He announces a victory parade, promising that everyone who joins the town square dance will get a tasty treat of honey-glazed beef. Once the parade time arrives, the chief knight escorts a big chunk of beef into the party, and Hunter Ironaxe takes charge of lighting up the fire grill. Soon, everyone starts their victory dance as flames crackle around the bonfire, filling the air with the sweet aroma of sizzling meat. Hunter Ironaxe announces that anyone who dances will get meat, and the longer they dance, the more they'll receive. People eagerly volunteer to dance, thinking it looks easy, and they persuade their friends to join in since no dancing means no meat. While everyone enjoys themselves, the chief raises concerns about distributing all the remaining stock of meat, fearing the prince might not have anything to eat until the next shipment arrives. The prince feels a bit disappointed, but reluctantly agrees to let the civilians enjoy themselves. So, their lively night continues with everyone dancing around the bonfire, singing, and having a great time. For the people of Bordertown, surviving the months of demons peacefully is an achievement worth celebrating, and festivities like this one will be remembered fondly for years to come. Meanwhile, our prince rushes back to the castle for his own private banquet, where all the witches are eagerly waiting. As soon as the prince arrives, Lightning decides to start the feast officially. Anna roasts sweet chickens with her fiery magic, cooking them to perfection and leaving Nana drooling over the delicious aroma. Nightingale shows off her skills by expertly slicing the meat into many pieces. Meanwhile, the tomboy and Nana are having the time of their lives, because having an outdoor barbecue party is the best thing they can wish for in their lives. Our hero is also having a great time, especially seeing everyone so happy. He believes they deserve this kind of luxurious treatment, thinking that people with such incredible abilities shouldn't be treated any less. Suddenly, the boy finds himself getting a sweet smooch from Lightning, right on his face. Nightingale and Anna are absolutely blown away by this unexpected move, and our hero's reaction is just as stunned. When the tomboy is asked about this abrupt kiss, she points out that women may kiss the territory ruler during celebrations, and it's a tradition. Meanwhile, Nightingale feels annoyed and a bit jealous, while Wendy clearly sees the tension. As the prince and Lightning go back and forth, we see Anna feeling a little down, probably because she wanted to kiss the prince too. Once midnight strikes, our hero feels dizzy from too much drinking. Suddenly, his dizzy mind perks up when he spots Anna in the distance. She gets really close, and our hero blushes. Right away, he starts explaining himself, saying the smooch with the tomboy was just an accident, to which Anna agrees. The prince further clarifies that Lightning is young, and he didn't look at her that way. Anna agrees once more. Anna then gathers her courage and admits she was waiting for them to be alone because she's not as bold as Lightning. As they get closer, just inches apart, Anna gives him a gentle kiss on the cheek. Meanwhile, Wendy's holed up in her room, buried in a book. She's totally baffled by how these books about the church's origins skip any mention of gods and just slap the title Pope on everyone. It's all a bit too much for her to wrap her head around. Just as she's mulling it over, Nightingale breezes in, catching Wendy mid-brainstorm. Wendy snaps the book shut, instantly lighting up to see her friend there. Wendy mentions how Lightning had gone to sleep while calling for Daddy, like a child. Nightingale chuckles and takes the book from Wendy's hand, reminding her that reading late at night could strain her eyes, especially in poor light. Suddenly, Wendy catches Nightingale off guard, asking if she's troubled by thoughts of the kiss Lightning gave our hero. Nightingale blushes and denies it, but Wendy presses her, telling her not to lie. Reluctantly, Nightingale clenches her teeth and admits the kiss is bothering her. Meanwhile, Wendy reassures Nightingale that Roland Wimbledon is the fourth prince of the kingdom, and their mission is to help him seize the throne and become the king of Grey Castle. She's confident he'll protect the witches under his rule and, when the time comes, marry a princess or a duke's daughter to secure the next generation. Wendy explains that as witches, they can't have children. It's a limitation granted by the heavens in exchange for their powers, and she hopes Nightingale understands this. Outside, as the party winds down, the townsfolk are busy with cleaning duties. They're already nostalgic for the months of demons, thanks to our hero who made their days unforgettable with his inventions and victories. They're also curious about what the artillery division will do now that the demons are gone. Vanner assures them they'll find out tomorrow. The next morning begins with the sound of horns, gathering all the soldiers for an announcement from our hero. Iron Axe informs them that since they've successfully protected Border Town from the demons, every member of the civilian army is now a private soldier under Prince Roland. However, he gives them the option to leave if they wish not to continue. A knight asks if being in the private army means they'll become knights. Hunter Iron Axe clarifies that a private army is a professional military force dedicated to protecting Prince Roland and his territory. They'll undergo year-round training focused on battle readiness, stricter discipline, and will receive higher salaries. The soldiers aren't totally sold on the better pay part, so Iron Axe lays it out. There's going to be a military ladder in this private army. With those who achieve outstanding results in battle will be promoted. Military officers will receive higher salaries and even land of their own. That news fires up the troops, who are now all about this new challenge and the rewards that come with it. But Iron Axe sternly reminds the excited crew that being members of the private army means their conduct must be far more disciplined than before. He emphasizes that any deviation from the code of conduct will result in severe consequences, such as forced labor or even execution. The squad members visibly tense up at the stern warning, and Iron Axe challenges them to reconsider their commitment if they have doubts. Despite the harsh conditions, Vanner remains steadfast in his determination to keep serving our hero, Roland, no matter what challenges arise. Seeing no one willing to leave the private army, Iron Axe raises his voice again with the authority of a seasoned captain, reminding them that they are now Prince Roland's private army. He declares that their training and conditioning will begin immediately, establishing a tone of strict discipline from this point forward. Back in the castle, Lightning reports to Prince Roland about the plans for the private army. She explained that due to the lingering snow outside the city, the soldiers will be crawling more than running during their 4-mile daily routine. While Lightning admires the new blueprints our hero has recently drawn up, the prince himself is deep in thought, contemplating the daunting task ahead of him, creating the army's structure from scratch, including regulations, rewards, and penalties. The sheer magnitude of the task gives him a major headache, considering he played military chess in his youth, but has since forgotten much of it. He's determined to innovate and do something unprecedented in this world and time. As they examine the blueprints, the word bayonet catches their attention. Before they can delve further into their discussion, a knock on the door interrupts them. With both witches vanishing into thin air, our hero grants permission for the visitor to enter. The old custodian surprises us once again by reporting that there's an aristocrat named Chris who wishes to meet our hero. Chris had left during the months of demons and has now returned, visibly upset because his house was demolished due to the construction of the walls. When our hero confronts Chris, the noble sternly demands answers about why the prince allowed his house to be taken down. He emphasizes how he spent a substantial amount, 150 golden coins, to build that magnificent mansion. Our hero bluntly asks if Chris is referring to the westernmost house in Border Town, to which Chris confirms. The prince apologizes, explaining that it was necessary because the house was too close to the wall and obstructed troop movements. However, he reassures Chris that the city will reimburse him for his loss. The greedy noble immediately perks up and asks how much he'll be getting. Our hero points out 20 golden royals, but this greedy guy isn't satisfied with such a small amount. Eventually, he agrees and asks where he can collect his money. The prince then reminds him that the sum has already been transferred to the property's rightful owner. The noble gets agitated and slams his hand on the desk, insisting he is the rightful owner of the property. Our hero cunningly points out that if the property truly belonged to him, why hadn't he been there even once during the months of demons? The noble explains that he had stayed at Longsong Fortress because he didn't want to die in Border Town. That is when the prince sees his opening, and questions whether this fat cat is implying he deserted his ruler out of fear of the demons. As the chief knight strides over, he claps the noble on the shoulder with a fierce look, letting him know that admitting his mistake about the house ownership can make this whole thing just a misunderstanding. He warns the noble that he can leave quietly to avoid any trouble, but if he does not leave, he will be charged for the act of treason and will be executed right away. The noble starts sweating bullets, finally owning up to his blunder and admitting the house isn't his. Our hero plays it cool, casually telling him it's all good and he can head out without any fuss. Before the noble scurries off back to Longsong, our hero tosses a message with him to carry. If any other nobles want to dodge treason charges, they better think twice about returning to town. It sounds like the noble is seething with frustration as he vents his anger by punching a nearby tree. He's convinced that once the Longsong Duke takes control of the territory, the prince will have to return, and this fat cat will wait for the moment to gloat over our hero's supposed downfall. As he storms down the road, his fury subsides when he spots a woman covered from head to toe, and the noble is taken aback by her beauty. He's never seen such elegance, not even among some princesses. Watching her stride purposefully toward the castle, he begins to wonder if she might be our hero's wife. Once inside the city, she covers her face again amidst the bustling town, finding herself confused to see the bustling streets, even though the months of demons just ended recently. When she reaches the castle gates, she wonders if Nightingale was truthful about the prince of this town. She hesitates before entering, but then she makes up her mind, thinking she could handle at least 2 guards if it came down to it. The knights at the castle door react sharply at this robe figure, ordering them to back off. As this is not a place for commoners, Lady Leaf remains undeterred, removes her hoodie, revealing her beauty, and boldly identifies herself as a witch. The soldiers exchange bewildered glances, unsure of how to respond. Meanwhile, Lady Leaf nervously swallows her fear and, with determination, requests to meet Nightingale, Nana, or Anna. The both guards take glances at each other, and one of them decides to step inside to report the situation. While seeing those soldiers go, Lady Leaf remains fearful that the soldier might be fetching reinforcements, or perhaps Nightingale had deceived them about the existence of Nana and Anna. With her head down in thought, she suddenly feels warm hugs from both Nightingale and Wendy. Once she realizes that they are her friends, the Lady Leaf is stunned to see both Nightingale and Wendy embracing her, their eyes moist with tears of joy. Wendy whispers a heartfelt "welcome home" into Lady Leaf's ear, which causes her to burst into tears herself. Meanwhile, our hero is seen yawning, and Wendy brings him some tea. During their tea time, our hero inquires about Nightingale, prompting Wendy to happily reveal that Nightingale is welcoming a new sister who has recently arrived. Our hero nearly chokes in surprise at this news, while Wendy enthusiastically mentions that the sisters from the association have come to Border Town. Shocked and excited, our hero asks Wendy if they were not looking for the Holy Mountain, to which the woman explains that only 7 witches remain, as the rest were obliterated by the monsters during their adventure. Lady Leaf then apologizes, mentioning they arrived while our hero was asleep, and asks for forgiveness for letting the witches enter the castle. Our hero, on the other hand, is thrilled to have more witches join them, no matter their skills or how many there might be. Wendy, though, drops a hint from Lady Leaf that these gals aren't exactly warriors, which means they might not be much help in a fight. You see, under the Stone of Divine Judgment's influence, these witches are kind of limited in their combat skills. But hey, the prince is cool with that. Having a witch who can zap things with electricity means no more dark nights, and one who can sculpt stuff means skipping all that refining and molding hassle. It's got our hero daydreaming about how much he can jazz up this ancient world with technological advancement using the power of witches. Nightingale abruptly snaps our hero out of his daydreaming, dragging him back to reality, reminding him that everyone is waiting for him. Shortly after, everyone gathers for dinner, with all the witches present. Our hero is pleased to welcome them to Border Town and hopes they enjoy the food, encouraging them to ask for anything they want. Lighting enthusiastically chimes in, agreeing that our prince is quite the generous guy and mentioning how he's always open to new members as well. One of the witches scolds Lighting for being so casual with our hero, but our hero dismisses her concerns, saying they don't bother with titles or formalities and urging everyone to start eating before the food gets cold. Meanwhile, the other witches watch Nana and Anna using what look like 2 little sticks to eat. These newcomers have no idea how to handle these utensils, so they can't help but stare in confusion. Regardless, everyone digs into their meal, thoroughly enjoying it, and once dinner ends, our hero finds himself poring over documents detailing each witch's abilities. After reviewing everyone's skills, the prince realizes that there isn't a witch capable of shaping materials or generating electricity. This realization means our hero's plans for progress towards modernization will need to slow down a bit. However, he acknowledges that there's enough talent among the witches to meet their current needs. The first witch our hero takes a liking to is Lady Leaf. Not only can she increase fruit yields, but she can also control all plants freely, making her an ideal candidate for agricultural expansion. Next is Scroll, a witch with inhuman memory that operates 24 hours daily. After her maturity, she is now able to recreate any book she's read, making her perfect for teaching. Then there's Hummingbird, a cute witch who can make things weightless or adjust their weight with her magic. This makes her invaluable for lifting cargo or adjusting payloads. Fourth is Soraya Zoan, from a merchant family in Grey Castle's capital. She can recreate lifelike landscapes using her magic brush without needing paint, ink, or paper, which makes her essentially a walking camera. Echo, the fifth witch, hails from the southern continent and can replicate any sound, making her a master of sound illusions. Finally, Lily, who just turned 16, has the ability to prevent food from rotting, potentially helping with food preservation. But our hero has yet to figure out if her powers can also kill bacteria. However, after Lady Leaf, the seventh witch, known as Moon, is the most intriguing witch. A young girl who doesn't talk much but is a priceless asset because she can magnetize metal. Her ability was upgraded after maturity, and now she can magnetize almost anything. Nightingale reveals that Moon was regarded as the most useless in their camp and often bullied by their teacher, Kara. But for our hero, magnetism means he has a way to generate electricity, which is the oldest trick in the engineering books, and all credit goes to Faraday. With electricity, they can have light, and it won't be long before another miracle happens in his territory. He decides not to categorize the witches into battle and non-battle categories, but instead prefers to place them into 3 large categories. The first category is self-reinforcing, consisting of passive abilities that are not affected by the Stone of Divine Judgment. The second category is summoning, and as the name suggests, the magic is summoned outside the body, but with an area of effect of 5 meters or less, and this ability can easily be suppressed by Stone of Dive Judgment. The third category, power attaching, is all about directly attaching magic to their target. The process is slow, consuming a hefty amount of magic, and can be interrupted by the Divine Stone of Judgment. However, once the conversion is done, the added properties become intrinsic to the object. They remain effective even in the presence of a Divine Judgment stone. Once he sorts everything out, he calls it a day, knowing that things are about to get a lot more hectic from here on out. But that's a story for another day. I'm sure you all enjoyed the journey as much as I did. Even after reaching this point, we're left craving more, eager to see how our prince will achieve the utopia he envisions. And let's not forget about the intrigue of church politics and the mysteries surrounding the demons. There's so much more to uncover.